What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first ever Sideline Specialist. It is me, Alex Fischbein, back with you guys from the Atlantic Files, and Tom Deasey, bringing you everything football. We might do other sports. We might do random things about God knows what, but that's what we're here to do. So, Tom, what's going on?
Not much. Just like I'm swimming in the labyrinth that is all the information. And it's just like a whirlpool and I'm getting lost, but
the internet is a wonderful place of both terrible information and great information all at the same time.
Always and forever. It induces constant fear when you click the wrong thing.
Oh, God. Especially the fear if you click the wrong thing, like at work or school or something like that. The worst.
There's a reason that NSFW is an acronym that got created. And
exactly.
I don't want to make that misstep. Oh, God.
I 100% agree. But yeah, for those that don't know, I mean, this could turn into a normal thing. It could be a one-off thing every so often. We don't really know yet. We're just kind of throwing this out there, seeing what happens. As it says, welcome to the new show thing, whatever.
No, it's like every TV show sends a pilot to networks, and maybe they get picked up. In this case, it's whether or not we decide that we want to keep doing it. Exactly. Or we can just turn it into any subject. Like that's kind of, it's trial and error because either way it's going to be fun.
Exactly. And we don't want to be pinned down to one specific topic, so we just throw in any topic.
Exactly.
And that's really what it comes down to. But
any malarkey that ESPN provides to us or any news network provides to us, we can analyze because something happens every day. And
exactly.
And we try to turn it into a goofy sort of analysis because humor is important.
Oh, for sure. Especially now that you got like Stephen A. Smith doing like his own little like podcast show, and people have him debating on like Dragon Ball Z and the best places to drop in on Fortnite. There's plenty of content around the internet to just riff on.
Yeah. And I mean, just to comment on that, I think if you're somebody who is watching Stephen A. do that for accurate, good information, please look elsewhere immediately.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nothing serious is going to come out of that. So
Stephen A. should be entertainment purely, never like.
Oh yeah,
they
should have disclosures.
Source. Exactly.
They should full disclosures right at the beginning of everything. None of the information that you were about to be given should be taken as fact.
It's like the. Have you watched the Pat McAfee show?
Always.
When they have the warning in the beginning, of just like there's a group of idiots talking about sports.
It's like so perfect though, because you do like they have people who have been in professional football.
Yep.
So you can always have like their serious side if they want to have it. But then like anytime they have Aaron Rodgers on, you're like, okay, we're gonna get 10 minutes of maybe serious and probably 2 hours of like conspiracy theories about things you didn't even think about ever before. Like
10 minutes NFL quarterback, 2 hours Alex Jones.
Exactly. Now, well, speaking of that though, because we're touching on NFL today, yes. Like if you don't watch the Pat McAfee draft like coverage,
oh yeah,
to see not Mel Kiper, oh my goodness gracious,
the best,
the GOAT.
Everyone, there's a lot of like, I feel like it's very divided on people who either are fans or are not fans of the Pat McAfee show. They either love it or they completely hate it. Yeah. And there's really not much in between. And a lot of people that hate it talk about like, oh, it's like the jock culture type of thing. And I can kind of see where they're going because sometimes Pat McAfee is like very jock, like high school jockey. Yeah. But like at the same time, he's also way more like the regular Joe Schmo talking about sport, even though he was in the NFL.
Yeah.
he talks about sports, and the rest of those guys talk about sports the way that we all talk about sports to each other at like our day jobs or like when we're hanging out with each other and things like that.
But I
That's what I
think
like.
that's the beauty of the show, though, is it's like entry level on purpose. They're not
Right.
trying to dive into like this, just the insane ins and outs and details of every little thing. They're just like, here's the big picture, what we all as a group of dudes think about it. And then like you have AJ Hawk over there smoking whatever the hell he's smoking every single freaking show, and you won't see him, and he'll just come in with a one-liner out of nowhere, and they're all dying laughing. Like, but I look at Pat McAfee too. It's like he's the most charismatic punter in history.
Oh yeah,
Which is why he's now a full-time WWE commentator.
which
Like,
I love.
what a literal like 90-degree sidestep. But you see it happen, and you're like, yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yep.
Because every time I've always watched wrestling, it's just a good form of entertainment, and he fits so well. But I don't know, too much
I watched
fun.
the most recent Royal Rumble, and when they called him to get in the ring, and he was standing on the outside, and just saw like the giant people all in the ring, and was just like, you know what, I'm eliminating myself.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna go sit back down in my cozy chair. I don't need a broken body. Nah. Yeah, who was in there? Wasn't it Omos? Like the big ass like
Yeah.
the 7'3" dude who's always with AJ Styles.
Yes.
Before AJ got hurt.
Yep. It was him and the only other giant guy that was like 7 feet tall. I forget his name.
Braun?
It's been yes. I think.
Was it Strowman? I can't even remember. No.
Who's the Russian guy?
Oh.
He seemed Russian. Or like Eastern European, I should say.
Gunther?
Yes, Gunther. Yes.
Yeah.
He was in there.
Gunther's the man.
Pat McAfee just looked at them both and was like, no thanks.
I'm gonna he's like, here, I'll tip my imaginary hat, see you later.
Yep. I'm gonna go sit back down.
Wisest move he's ever made in his life.
Oh, 1,000%.
It's like if literal alarm bells could be inside your skull, all of his were ringing. Like, don't.
And for those back home, by the way, with the NFL draft, we're going to be talking about mock drafts and things like that too, as well as free agency. We're going to look at some of the bovadasportsbook.com betting lines. We'll go through all of that with all this NFL stuff. But the one thing about us is we are, even though the people that know me from Atlantic Files, they know I'm a huge Sixers fan. The only Philly sports team I am not, well, I don't want to say not a fan of, because I still cheer for them since my whole family are Eagles fans and everything. But the only one that isn't my main team is football. I'm actually a Baltimore Ravens fan. A lot of people ask me why, because I'm not from Baltimore. Look, when I was young, I was playing in a volleyball tournament down in Baltimore. In the convention center, the Ravens defense happened to be having an event in the same building, and I saw them, and I met Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and McAllister and all those guys. So as a young impressionable kid, I'm like, holy shit, these guys are cool.
Hell yeah. Well, and that was such a badass team.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
Such a badass team. And it was like, as just a football fan for myself, it's like I cannot help but appreciate any chance I had to watch the Ravens Hall of Famers play. Like, you get to see Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, dudes, like just got everybody in that back end, especially early, like mid 2000s. Jesus,
Insane,
murderers,
insane,
absolute murderers.
Like, I mean, those guys were insane. I mean, I have the Ed Reed jersey behind me. Luckily, got that signed at a training camp.
I should put on one of my signed jerseys. I should do that right now.
What Eagles jersey do you have on right now?
It's Jalen Hurts.
Oh, okay. The nice Kelly Green?
Yeah. I have, who do I have on the current team? Let's see. All right. In Kelly Green, I have Jalen Hurts and Nolan Smith, because I'm still convinced Nolan Smith's going to be a stud. And I think We'll get into why, because actually his name is going to come up.
Okay.
I have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Darius Slay. And I have Slay's original, like when he first came and his number was 24.
Mm-hmm.
And it says Slay Jr.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm actually happy I bought it when I did, even before he switched, because I like the junior.
Yeah, that's nice.
But I was going to say, to roll off your explaining your Ravens fanhood,
Yep.
the other team I always have cheered for, since I can pinpoint exactly when too, is I was 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up a USC Trojans fan because of my dad. QB for them was Carson Palmer. He gets drafted to the Cincinnati Bengals. And
Classic.
9-year-old kid followed Palmer, stuck with the Bengals, and they had enough other personalities then with obviously Ocho Cinco, TJ Huspanzada, and then Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis. It was like, I'm going to stick with them.
Wow, Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis. I forgot about that.
The law firm, one of the best nicknames in football history. And then like now for the first time literally in my life, I can look at the Bengals and go, oh crap, they're good for once. Like I have unfortunately he just left, but I have Joe Mixon, which I'm happy to have that jersey because dude's still the man, even though he's in Houston now. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, like I have some solid ones. I'm gonna add to it too, but
okay.
Like I want to see who they draft because that's one of my traditions every year. Especially for the Eagles, is if the first round pick they liked, if I actually had a good feeling about him, I'd buy the jersey like that night.
Okay,
Would just get it. But I skipped a couple, and I'm pretty proud of my intuition. I skipped the shit out of Jalen Reagor because oh my god, I knew that was going to be a disaster.
Whew. Like
as soon as we picked him, I'm like, Justin Jefferson is still available. Yeah, I'm good. Got it. Like that's an atrocity. Who else? Let's see.
That could have been.
And this was the one I'm still shocked I skipped because he went to USC, which of all things I should have bought just based on my fanhood, but was Nelson Aguilar.
Okay.
He was a Super Bowl hero.
Yeah.
He had like 10 catches in that game, which is insane, but he had that one good year. It counted, but like he's been on 4 different teams now, so it's
now he's on the Ravens.
I know, and I think he's a good fit there.
He has been. Yeah. No, he's been a really
solid fit he'll be even better if they can improve that talent group.
For
like
sure.
just that, if the wide receiver room gets better, like they all do. So I'm excited to see what they do. That's my mock draft has some action going on for that, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So let's do this first. We'll give our thoughts on how the Eagles and Ravens have done in free agency before we get into like the overall free agency. So I brought up the free agency trackers from both teams' websites. So we'll go Eagles first. So I have theirs up right here.
Yep, I'm scrolling down. I'm on PFF's.
Okay. I'm just on the Eagles website.
This is perfect though because you have the pictures and I just have the list, so it works.
Okay. So additions wise, we got, for those listening not on YouTube, we got Saquon Barkley, of course. We have linebacker Oren Burks, linebacker Zach Bond. They bring back CJ Gardner-Johnson, which I want to get your thoughts on because that was funny to me.
Yeah.
They bring in Matt Hennessy on the offensive line, Bryce Huff from the Jets, who is a linebacker, Devontae Parker from the Patriots. They trade for my boy Kenny Pickett.
Tiny hands. Let's go.
Kenny Two Gloves. And then they bring in PJ Mustipher, the defensive tackle, and Devin White, the linebacker from Tampa Bay. So some of their departures, I mean, they like these were expected. Like Kevin Byard, I mean, he wasn't that great. Marcus Mariota was a backup. We all knew that. Nicholas Moreau, I also... when the Eagles signed him, I was like, he's not going to do much. Nicholas Moreau, I feel like, is not in a place to like really be an important linebacker, and they needed him as one. So
yeah,
but Yeah. Jack Stoll, a backup tight end, and then they lost DeAndre Swift is probably like the biggest one they lost out of
Yeah.
like who was there, but then I guess the signings made sense. They re-signed Landon Dickerson, Brandon Graham, Jake Elliott, Rick Lovato, the long snapper, Braden Mann, the punter, and Albert O, the another backup tight end. And then of course, retirement wise, you lose Jason Kelsey and you lose Fletcher Cox, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's one of those off seasons that for once, from like just a sports fan's perspective in general, everything that was supposed to happen kind of has. Like, we were never keeping Kevin Byard. We were always going to release Avonte Maddox, which that should be on departures because that is actually one of the bigger ones.
That's true.
I'm surprised that's not on there, but
yeah.
Like those two were always going to happen. And then even looking at this, like the unrestricted free agents, like Quez Watkins can literally go bag groceries. I don't want to see that dude on an Eagles sideline ever again in my life. He had like 3 years to prove that he belonged. He does not.
He had a long time to prove that he belonged.
Oh God, Shaq
Julio
Leonard
Jones did more than him.
And he was always going to. The dude is old as dirt at this point for a receiver, and he was always going to be better than Quez. Just like I don't care how old Julio is. The dude has hands, and Quez does not, and that is like the number one requirement. But the way I look at this free agency, right? It's like, okay, you needed to create cap space. So Avonte Maddox is the obvious one, even though we're already kind of weak at corner. That's one of our glaring needs going into this offseason. But see, I say glaring needs. Most Eagles fans forget this. Most NFL fans definitely forget this.
Mm-hmm.
We signed Isaiah Rodgers last year, and he was serving a full 16-game, full season suspension for gambling. And the Colts released him. He's like 25 or 26 years old, and when he did play for the Colts, was very, very good. I'm not going to call him all-pro or anything yet, but the guy is a dude you could put on the field. You're not going to be scared that he's going to blow coverage horribly, because that's just not his thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just here now. His suspension's over. He's projected to be basically taking over for Avonte Maddox at the moment, which is huge. That a guy on the roster was just kind of sheltered away, ready to pop up and take a place like that. We're going to feel the loss of Cox and Kelsey.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe Kelsey not as much right away because he handpicked his replacement in Cam Jurgens.
Mm-hmm.
And he literally, the whole draft process the year that Jurgens was drafted, he was the guy doing the scouting for the team. Because he cares about the Eagles enough to be that's the guy that's going to take over.
Right.
And Jurgens he played at guard, so he has some experience on an NFL field now, but he gets to go back to his natural position where his size is meant to be. And it's just going to be about him and Hurts in the offseason building chemistry. Because that center to QB chemistry has to be so flawless. The best signing the Eagles made, 100%, is Devin White. For the money we spent, I
loved
think
that signing.
It's so brilliant because people are going to doubt him because he didn't look as flashy as he did when they went to the Super Bowl a few years back.
Mm-hmm.
He is not old. The dude, his gas tank is still brimmed 100%. And now you come to a fan base that's, no discredit to Tampa at all, but our fan base is so much more passionate, and energetic and everything. We'll be on your ass. That's the whole Eagle Philadelphia motto. It's not to make you feel like shit. It's to push you to be better.
Right.
And if you can stand it, you'll become a great player. If you can't, you don't belong here. I think a very quiet, sneaky, good signing is the one on the left there, Devontae Parker.
That'll be interesting.
Just to create competition.
Yeah.
Because Parker's never had a problem with drops. Ever. That's one of his selling points and why he has maintained a job in the NFL is he has hands. He's not going to be like some game breaker, but that's not what we need. We have 2 of those already. It's more to have that extra set of hands on the field that could get open when the other 2 can't. So it's just little things like that. Extensions on good guys. So.
I'm especially interested to see Devontae Parker because a lot of people have like already counted him out like career-wise.
Yeah.
Just from what he's done in New England. But at the same time, New England's quarterback situation has been
a joke.
So
it's a joke. Like I look at Devontae Parker and I'm like, okay, you are in the twilight of your career. You're 31 years old.
Right.
But when you watch him play, it's not like he's lost all of his speed. He hasn't lost his hands. He can still run routes. And I mean, you're literally going from Mac Jones to Jalen Hurts now. That is a quantum leap in today's NFL. And I know there's plenty of people who still want to criticize Jalen. His accuracy is not the problem.
Right.
There was a full team meltdown that still can't be explained. Even the players are kind of like, what the fuck? But I'm sitting here, I'm going, okay. New coaching staff comes in that's going to, on both sides of the ball, and I like both hires. So you start with that. That's your foundation, right?
Yep.
A guy like Parker could thrive in this because Kellen Moore, as an offensive mind, as young as he is, he's very, very intelligent, and he's proven that already. It's not like he's been 1 year somewhere and you're like, oh, that was okay. Like, Dallas's offense looked really good with him. They got rid of him, and they had problems. So I'm very intrigued. And I do hope he finds, obviously, because he's on the Eagles now, but I hope for his own sake he can compete and feel good about how he's playing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially, like, worst comes to worst, he's also going to learn from A.J. Brown. And, like, the entire wide receiver room is going to be able to, like, mold him into whatever they need, really.
Well, that's why I like the chemistry of this team anyway. It's like the wide receiver room is really tight. Like, Devontae and AJ are really, really good friends. So it's not like they're not even looking at each other like, why is he getting paid? Why is he getting paid? They just want to play. And, like, Devontae will get an extension. It's coming. I know it is, because there's no way you ever let this dude wear any other freaking uniform. But I look at it, too. It's like, just just learn by committee. Like, Devontae Parker's still he's going to be the veteran in that locker room now. So he can give his 2 cents, and then AJ, being a perennial Pro Bowler, can give his 2 cents. You just have to work together. And then, especially on field, like, have certain plays where you're going to do something different to help each other. Like, the Eagles have problems with pick blocks. We do that a lot. It's really stupid. Like, don't do that. But, I don't know, just good on-field communication is so massive.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I know Devontae Parker will have no issue with that at all.
Right.
But,
so I want to hear your thoughts about getting. I think Bryce Huff was a good signing, but also C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
So I'm of the opinion that C.J. Gardner-Johnson should have never been allowed to leave.
I agree with that too. I thought the same thing.
I was happy of all the teams he went to, it was Detroit, because I'm like, okay, I mean, they got a good guy, and I don't hate the Lions, so cool. But yeah, I mean, especially given our severe lack of safety once we didn't have him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love Reed Blankenship. He's solid. I need him to not get hurt every other game. Desperately, because he plays the position well. But then it was like, okay, we had one, I can't remember his name, because he played like 4 games, and then we signed Byard, or we traded for Byard, and then Byard came in, and it was like, you are old, and it is obvious. It wasn't super obvious before; it's obvious now. I think the level of competition that Byard went from facing in Tennessee in that division to what he had to face with us, and the defensive scheme by Deasey was just an absolute atrocity. Like, how many times can you play loose zone with absolutely no press ever when you have Darius Slay, who he like thrives in press coverage? That's what he loves, because he loves to talk and he loves to get in your head. And you're gonna have, but then like once your corners aren't on press, your safeties are gonna be weaker because the receivers they're gonna try and assist in covering are already going full speed, already into their route, made their breaks, and Byard was just too slow for that. And I'm cracking up at Chicago because it's like, I mean, I guess you watched that film and saw something good because we didn't. But you can have fun with him for the next 3 years, guys. That's all right. Like we paid similar money for CJ to come back,
right?
That the Bears paid Byard, and I'm just like, there's no way you look at both their films and think they're equal. It's just not. Like the Super Bowl run for the Eagles, we don't have the record we do in the regular season if CJ doesn't pop off and tie the league lead with picks.
Exactly. And
he missed 6 games. Like, what's Jesus? But I hope he comes back, because in his press conference he's like, I want to finish what we started here, and I hope he brings that hunger, because that's what'll make this worthwhile 100%.
I think he will, because he's just that kind. He's that kind of guy. Like he's the kind of guy that will, no matter what, even if he's losing, winning, whatever, he's gonna be talking. I mean, there was the whole thing of Detroit where I forget who he was talking shit to, one of the bigger name wide receivers or whatever, and like there was the whole thing between him and the opposing wide receivers, and like, again, even if you're losing, he's the kind of guy on your team. He's like the Patrick Beverly or the Dylan Brooks, or like that kind of guy of the team that you hate when he's on the other team because he's annoying, and you're like, once you win, you're like, yeah, shut the hell up. But if he's on your team, you're like, yeah, I love this guy.
Well, it's like I look at hockey. Hockey's always perfect for that, for the like instigation sort of thing. So, like, Brad Marchand on the Boston Bruins is the most hated player in the NHL right now. I think he still is. It's him or like Matthew Tkachuk, and then actually probably Travis Konechny on the Flyers. Like, nobody likes him, because all they do is chirp the whole game. Because they're IQ, like they're actually intelligent, so they say shit to you can't really come back to.
Yep.
They're good at the game, so it's not like they're just that dude in the corner talking who isn't doing anything. They're like, they always contribute. and I think about that, I'm like, you need that. And in hockey, it's like, if a game's going poorly, you just send the big dude out there and get in a fight with somebody. Like, you can't do that in football, but you can talk your head off, and anything you can do to get an opponent off their game for one play is massive. Right. Especially, you know what I mean? Like, what was his name? The corner, Aqib Talib.
Yes.
Was so good at that. And he would just make people look foolish. Not because he was a good corner, but he wasn't the best. But he could beat you any play if he got in your head. And the Eagles were missing that. We needed that personality on that side of the ball that was going to energize the rest of the group, piss off the opponents, like anything. And he's definitely, he could definitely do that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I agree with you, like going back to kind of the first point. I don't think he should have left in the first place, because he also just like embodies the Philly spirit, really.
Exactly.
Like, that's just the guy he is. That's just, they should have kept him from day one. And it's like, it's kind of nice seeing them bring him back. And then you get Saquon Barkley, where all the Penn State fanatics, they're all excited for that, because obviously the ties between Philly and Penn State. Personally, I say fuck Penn State, but that's me.
That's fine.
I'm a Pitt guy, so that's why I
Yeah,
said earlier that Kenny Pickett is my guy.
but it fits. It fits though.
Exactly.
If you went to Pitt, you're obvious. You know what I mean. You got to have the loyalty.
Exactly. But I'm not going to deny that Saquon Barkley is a beast, and the people that it's been funny to me because the people that were like, oh, Barkley hasn't been able to stay healthy, blah blah blah. If you actually like the big knee injury is what always stands out to everybody, which like in good reason. But other than that season, he's played at least 13 games every season.
Yeah.
So it's like
here's what kills me too, because I'm gonna bounce. It goes right with your point, right? What stadium in the NFL is absolutely infamous for injuring the shit out of star players? MetLife. Where is he no longer playing 8 or 9 times a year? MetLife. Like, this is simple. I'm sorry. Like, DeAndre Swift, as soon as the Eagles signed him, he can't stay on the field. And he did. Like, I'm sorry. That difference alone is enough for me to go, I know that this was a good call. It just was. We have a better front office that will put an O-line in front of him that's way better than what the Giants can ever do.
It already is way better than the Giants.
Exactly. And but even better, like, we have him for 3 years, it'll stay better all for his entire time here, even if he doesn't get extended. And then I look at too, it's like, okay, you have a better quarterback now, you have better threats on the outside, so your chances of having big plays are way more increased because the defense always has to be aware of AJ and Devontae Smith. Every single play. And Dallas Goedert. He's a top 5 tight end when healthy, like, period. So you have all that. And I'm not going to say better coaching yet because I need to see Kellen Moore put this offense into place. I think he can because I know I've seen what he's done with other talent. But everything for Saquon got better, especially as a running back who's 27 years old now. Like, he's in the physical prime years of an adult human being. Like, that's where he's at. And we are now years removed from that knee injury. Years.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That was 2020. It is 2024 now. Like, that is so far in the past that it's not in my head. And I think he's going to be a stud. And I think the Eagles, being the organization that decided to go out on this limb and give him this deal, the Eagles never sign running backs for money like this.
True.
Ever. So it's obvious to Howie that this guy is enough of a game breaker that you have to have him. And especially, like, it's not even his rushing, right? Like, let's take his 2022 season, which statistically is his best year. Okay? 1,312 yards rushing, 4.4 yards per carry, 10 touchdowns, only 1 fumble, and he didn't lose that fumble. Okay, and that's just rushing. So you had 1,312 yards. You go to receiving, he had 57 catches on 76 targets for another 340 yards. Like, bro. But I'm looking at that, and I'm like, that was with Daniel Jones. Like, those kind of numbers. Yeah. So I'm sitting here going, like, Daniel Jones has his bag, and the Giants, like, franchise is in shambles because Saquon was good.
Exactly.
The end. But I look at those numbers, and I'm like, okay, so he can do both. And there's this white dude on the West Coast who does both. And he'll never be as good as Christian McCaffrey. But if you can have a guy who's even remotely like him, your offense is so much better immediately. And that is exactly what Saquon is. Genuinely. Like, he's a receiver that can pass protect, catch, and run the ball extremely well, which is why he was taken 2nd overall in a draft.
Exactly.
Like, come on.
I think he can be the number 2 running back in the entire league.
100%.
He has that ability, for sure.
That his athleticism genuinely is still unmatched. I think, as an athlete, I do think he is above Christian McCaffrey. But as like a football player, I think Christian still has the advantage. Just the way he puts the game together is just so flawless.
McCaffrey's
But
just insane.
he's he's one of your generational one of ones that you're like, wow, just anytime you see him. But I want to see Saquon shine because he's been nothing but a humble guy since college. He had all the spotlights on him, and he's just been chilling. Like,
I will say, after all of these additions, well, I should say additions so far, according to Bovada, the Eagles have the 6th highest odds to win the Super Bowl as of right now.
Can I guess who's ahead?
Yeah, go for it.
Because I haven't seen these odds. I'm gonna say Kansas City's one of them.
Yep.
San Francisco's another one.
Yep.
Baltimore.
Yep.
Okay.
This is where it could get a little mixy.
Do I want to guess Detroit? I kind of do want to guess Detroit. Is Detroit one of them?
No.
Wow. So they're hating on Detroit again. Okay. See, that's interesting.
Detroit is right after the Eagles. So the Eagles
they're
are plus
they're
1,200 and Detroit is plus 1,400.
All right, let me give this an honest thought here because I gotta look NFC. If Dallas is ahead of us, I'm actually gonna kick somebody.
Nope.
Okay, good, because that would make no sense. Let's see. Thinking logically.
Well, I'll wait till you guess one more, then I'll give you this hint. But I don't know, because at least one of these teams I wouldn't put there.
Okay. That makes me think then. Miami?
No.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
The hint is they are both AFC.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, Cincinnati.
Yes, that's one of them. They are.
Yeah.
And these two teams are tied, by the way. They're both at plus 1,100.
All right, so if Cincinnati is one, I have to, all right. The team I wish that they would do, and I actually am kind of thinking they might have because I'm looking at the full list of teams right. Oh, Buffalo. Yep. Yeah, it's got to be Buffalo.
Yep.
So Buffalo, I can actually get because some of the moves they've made so far. Like, they've lost some guys. I'll own that. They've lost some dudes, but they have brought in help for Josh Allen.
True.
They brought in Curtis Samuel. I think that's one of the best signings of the offseason so far. He was a consistent receiver with subpar QB play. I like Sam Howell, but there's a reason that the Commanders traded him to be a backup in Seattle. Like,
exactly.
He's not the guy. But if you're Curtis Samuel and you were already producing solid seasons, and now you get to upgrade to Josh Allen, that's huge. And then they extended important offensive linemen. They got rid of guys who took up too much cap for their age. So, like, the Bills are a team that aren't done in free agency yet, so they're only going to get better.
And they still have solid younger players in
exactly.
And Kincaid, like, they have.
Well, it's crazy too because Josh Allen isn't even old yet, so it's like
true.
Like, that's the thing, especially in this league. It's like quarterbacks do just last longer in the NFL, as long as, like, barring injury. But he hasn't had any that are like, oh no, you know what I mean? Like, he's going to be fine. So,
luckily enough, because he's reckless.
Oh, he's psychotic. He's literally Jalen Hurts but white, and like not as physically strong in the legs. You know what I mean? They both love just running into people, and it's just like, dude, one of these days, your leg is going to go the wrong way. I'm sorry. That's just how it goes. And it scares the crap out of me because I love watching Josh Allen play football.
Oh, yeah. But I will say, too, I was listening to the Fantasy Footballers podcast, and they brought up the fact that the offensive coordinator now for Buffalo was the offensive coordinator in Carolina when Curtis Samuel was down there.
Ooh.
And
okay.
And that OC has nothing but praises for Curtis Samuel and says that he's one of the best team players and just like all around IQ wide receivers that he's ever coached. So this guy is huge in Curtis Samuel.
You can see it too, though. Even like when the Eagles play the Commanders twice a year, it was literally, where is Curtis Samuel? Like, he runs perfect routes every single play. So even if you're the corner that's on him and you cover him perfectly, he's where he's supposed to be. So if the ball is thrown right, he's gonna catch it.
Yep.
And you're giving him Josh Allen and an offensive coordinator that likes him. So it's literally just going to be a situation of him and Diggs getting on the same page and coming up with perfect game plans like figuring out what plays that work for them, and then Allen just hitting the spots. Like it's that simple for them. Exactly. And they have a running game now because James Cook is not a slouch. They made the right moves moving on from Singletary when they did. And speaking of him, I absolutely adore the Giants fans who were pretending that he's going to be anything close to what Saquon was for them. Because, fuck no. Nice try.
Every team that has a trade that they get rid of a superstar talent has to cope with it somehow. I mean, we had Brooklyn Nets fans saying Ben Simmons was going to become an MVP. You had all sorts of things over the history of sports where they're just like, we got this guy. He's going to do the same exact thing.
Like, speaking of Ben Simmons, the 2-second tangent, I genuinely have gone from disliking him to feeling genuinely really bad. That his body cannot cooperate. Because I know the off-season shit shouldn't matter, but the dude has seriously been putting an effort to try and better his game, and it's just his body will not let him do it. And I love that in the offseason this season, they asked him, like, if you were going to get traded from the Nets, where would you want to go? And he said Philly.
True.
I was like, I admire that, because you were so vilified here that most people would want to run. But in my head, I'm like, if we ever acquired him again, it's like, can you imagine bringing Ben off the bench to play just absolute shutdown defense on somebody? Like,
exactly.
I would never hate that, and he would be getting paid so much less. But it's like, I hope for his sake that his body can start to heal up and cooperate, because I think he does have a lot to offer. For sure.
He does a lot of things well. So
his speed for a guy who's 6'9" is just it's ludicrous. Oh, like that. My biggest thing I always admired about him,
along with his court vision, it's insane.
Oh, like, as much as you can hate on the man for not having a jump shot, everything else was like, you're like, he knows how the game works. But
for sure.
All right, do you want to do Ravens?
But yeah. So jumping into the Ravens, let me bring up their free agent tracker. They really haven't signed all that many people. Oh, by the way, as we were talking, looking at my fellow people over at rotoballer.com, the Eagles signed Tyler Hall, free agent defensive back, to a 1-year deal. He's a 25-year-old undrafted free agent in 2020. Kind of bounced around a couple different teams, but he started 6 games between 2 seasons with the Raiders. This is definitely like more of just a depth signing in case someone gets hurt. So they did add some defense there.
All right, can I read a this guy's coming in to replace Maddox.
Oh, all right, there you go. Yeah.
100%. I'm reading this right here. So I'm going to read, I just typed his name in, and there's the Twitter stuff is here first.
Oh yeah.
I love this. This one makes me happy, but it just says, great pickup for Philly. Tyler Hall is one of those guys that just does everything well. Great in coverage, can apply pressure on blitzes, rarely misses tackles. This stat is crazy to me. He's never missed more than 1 tackle in a season. Jeez. That was the Eagles' biggest flaw last year. We would hit a guy and the dude would not fucking go down. Nope. So that's huge. And then the next one right next to it is, it's my understanding that the Eagles view CB Tyler Hall primarily as a nickel. He can also play outside and safety. He had multiple offers. He chose Philadelphia.
Wow. All right.
So
I mean, he's only 25, so there's plenty of time to grow and really stay with the
absolutely,
team for at least a few more years if he
yeah.
proves he can.
And
So,
you're coming into a city that just hired Vic Fangio as
yep,
D coordinator, who is one of this generation's like most creative minds as far as building an entire defensive scheme from scratch. So that's huge.
exactly. So that's
Also
nice.
huge.
Great signing by
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
As well, some news while we've been talking. Michael Gallup is set to visit the Ravens.
Ooh.
Free agent wide receiver. For those that don't know, that was recently cut by the Cowboys. Didn't really do
Because
much last year because, like, I mean, they have
because
plenty of other wide receivers to throw to.
no, I was gonna say because Dallas is a shambles, but
True, but I mean,
they just well I'll say this about Michael Gallup, okay? Because I like him.
mhm,
I do. I think he's a reliable receiver.
Right.
I don't think he's never been like a number one. And the only way he'd be a number one is if he went to a team that was like completely just devoid of anyone.
well, they
But
said
I look at the Ravens and
the other team interested in him is the Panthers. So,
but see, I look at that and I'm like, okay, they just traded for Deontay Johnson. So, and they just signed David Moore back. I think he was in Chicago last, but he's been with the Panthers before. So if you had a trio of Johnson, Gallup, and Moore, at least you're giving Bryce Young something.
true.
Like guys who have played, who are familiar with just the NFL game in general. Like you're not just drafting guys and hoping.
They still have Thielen too, right? Or is he a free agent?
Yeah, and Thielen had a really good year. Like
Yeah, he did.
I think he was signed for multiple years. Let me double check on that. I believe
He
is
won a
signed
lot of people's fantasy games. So,
Adam Thielen contract. Let's take a look. So, oh yeah, they signed him for a 3-year deal. So he's got 2 more left.
okay,
And that's perfect for Bryce Young because honestly, I adore Adam Thielen. He's like one of the best undrafted stories in the history of football. Genuinely, his career, unbelievable. But like so you have Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Deontay Johnson, Laviska Shenault, and Terrace Marshall Jr. That's your top 5 currently on that team. And I'll throw Jonathan Mingo's name in there too. So if you bring Gallup in, it shifts the whole thing.
right.
So instantly that's a bit better. But let me compare that to what the Ravens have at this exact moment by looking at Zay Flowers.
Zay Flowers and Aguilar, I think, is all we have at the moment. Because
because Odell got cut.
yeah,
What's his face? Is your boy Rashad Bateman still on the roster? Do you know?
I think he's technically on the roster, but he might be like a restricted. Do they do restricted free agents in the NFL?
They do. It's just not as like the most intense sport for restricted free agents is hockey, 100%. Because you can set in hockey, it's different than anything else. You can literally send a restricted free agent an offer sheet,
right.
with a full like insane contract on it, and if the team that he's currently on doesn't match it, then he's just like signed to the new team by default.
Okay. That's how they do it in the NBA too.
Yeah, but
So
then it's like a pick penalty if the team does match it. It's crazy. Like there's actually like a repercussion. Yeah, it's weird. But it makes teams hesitant. So
that makes sense. So Bateman, I think, is technically part of the team, but they've been kicking around whether or not to re-sign. And he's still on his rookie contract. I know that much.
yeah, and that's why he'll probably stay until it's over because it's costs nothing.
Right.
And it's like even if you needed if you needed a reserve, he's there for that, and it's like it's always good to have. But I am surprised. Like Baltimore had that really rough playoff game. Like so in my head I was kind of expecting to see more to this point. But maybe they're just like really hoping that the draft or using like draft capital can net them what they'd like to have. But
True. I mean, notoriously, the Ravens are very good drafters. From Ozzie Newsome and then into Eric DaCosta, I have always trusted them with the draft, with the exception of drafting wide receivers. Zay Flowers is like the first good wide receiver they've drafted in a very, very, very long time, probably since Torrey Smith.
yeah.
And obviously he's retired, so yeah, it's been a while.
But you look at Torrey Smith too, though. You're like, okay, you won a Super Bowl with the Ravens and the Eagles.
Right.
So you can see the pedigree there. Like, yeah, you picked the right guy, especially in that draft was nuts too, because I think he was 2011.
Yeah.
And that draft was him, AJ Green, Julio Jones, and there's one more guy that rounded out this like quad of receivers that was just like, what the f is going on?
Yeah. It was stacked.
Yeah.
And I love having,
stacked.
I mean, at the time he was when the Ravens won the Super Bowl, he was their number 2 receiver because they traded for Anquan Bolden at the time.
And Anquan, come on. What a guy.
He's fucking amazing. I love
what
Anquan
a guy.
Bolden. And so yeah, ever since really that year, the best receivers to really come through are like a past his prime Steve Smith, who, don't get me wrong, I also love Steve Smith.
Oh, hold on. Let me see if I have this. I'm going to take my headphones off for 2 seconds. I got to see if I have it hanging up.
Okay. But Steve Smith, and then like I don't really know after that. There really wasn't many. Oh yeah, there's the Steve Smith jersey.
Yeah, you don't, my boy. You don't need to tell me about Steve Smith. Let's go.
Steve Smith is just the man. Like, we were talking about people talking shit. Steve Smith is,
oh my lord,
all-time great of talking shit.
Oh, okay. Here was the Steve Smith lesson in trash talk: was if I can't beat you with the trash talk, I am stronger than you are.
Yes.
Like,
ice up, son.
The clip of him throwing Malcolm Jenkins like he weighed 2 pounds will never leave my mind, because as an Eagles fan, I saw Malcolm Jenkins break Brandon Cooks in half in the Super Bowl.
Right.
Like, that dude wasn't a pussy, and Steve Smith still made him look, for that moment, like one. So,
he was able
100%.
to make anyone look like a pussy. It was amazing.
Yeah, exactly. He fit Baltimore. Baltimore is that hard-nosed, like, that's why I've always respected their style of play, because they always just literally were like, scoreboard might say shit, we're having a rough day, we're going to beat the shit out of you on this field, so the next time you come back here, you'll be afraid.
Exactly.
And I love that.
And it's been, like, the big thing for me with the whole playoff loss and everything, I also thought that they would be doing a lot more in free agency, but also at the same time, if they actually stuck to the game plan they've used all season of running the ball and establishing that first and then going to the passing game, I feel like they probably would have been fine. They abandoned the run really early on, even though it's not like the Chiefs were like completely shutting it down. They abandoned it before the Chiefs really like could show all the things that they were really doing against the run. So from that point of view, the fact, that even during the season, their run game was so dominant, even though J.K. Dobbins got hurt yet again, Gus Edwards became the number 1 again. And
he's somewhere else now.
Exactly. He's with the Chargers now. And
continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So, and Justice Hill had some very good games in there. He's still on the team right now. Actually, he's still on the team. Then there's Keaton Mitchell, the undrafted rookie from this past year, who started to have some insanely good games and then unfortunately tore his ACL. So he'll be questionable this season because speed was the name of his game. So I don't know how he's going to look.
Well, what I can hope, right, is he talked to the same doctor that Aaron Rodgers went to.
Right.
Just because that guy, I mean, I don't know what the fuck he did, but the way his Achilles healed was impressive. But I'm looking at this too. Sorry, I typed in J.K. Dobbins to see what was up with him. Apparently, his projected places to end up are the Cowboys, Colts, or Bengals.
Oh wow. I hope it's not
And
the Bengals. The Bengals have already gotten Geno Stone from the Ravens, and that annoys me enough.
how much did you love Lamar mocking Tiki Barber? Did you see
Oh,
that or no?
that was so
That
funny.
was so perfect.
I follow him on Instagram, and the moment Tiki Barber did the thing, Lamar posted a story and just like laughing about the quote. And in his story, he says, "Oh, I'm using this from now on." So he did it to Stone. He did it to Patrick Queen. He literally just started doing it to every person that didn't re-sign with the Ravens.
Well, I'd say I like as someone who likes the Bengals, right? I should not like the Ravens. That's just like default.
Right.
The problem is I really like Lamar Jackson as a human being.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just everything about him. Off the field, such a good guy. And then on the field, he gives 100% even when it's killing him. Even when he's having a bad game, he's literally never afraid to just keep trying, which is what happened in the playoff game. It just didn't go his way. But
true.
His sense of humor has been perfect so far. Like, and I was looking at, I just love, I'm going to look that up. Hold on. Saquon. I want to see this. I want to remind myself exactly what was said because it was such a just comedic, like, well, the fact that all these other, like, the Jeff Teague podcast, whatever podcast he does, he said shit. He called out Tiki, like, shut your fucking mouth. You've done nothing for the city of New York. Like, you missed the Super Bowls.
Exactly.
You weren't there. Like, you contributed nothing. It doesn't matter that you stayed loyal. You were supposed to be the guy. You weren't the guy.
And on the ESPN Instagram post of the quote, there was like, in the comments was like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, like all these other NFL big names saying like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Like, who the fuck are you? But right. I love that Saquon's, like, clap back was, literally like, don't smile at me when you see me.
Exactly.
Because it's like, if you're going to be this dude who's like all like super opinionated and hard ass whatever, don't be that hypocrite when I'm in your face. Don't be that guy. Either be one way or be the other. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, you have belonged in Philly your whole fucking life.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
And especially from his point of view, you should know not to start shit like that with a guy who's going to the Eagles, because now the Philadelphia fans are going to be chanting like Tiki Barber at the Giants game.
Yeah, and we travel well, so it'll be in MetLife, where they're supposed to have the dominance, but they never do because their team sucks. So nobody wants to go, and we buy all the tickets. But I'm here's what I'm looking at for the Ravens, right? Because I think, is there a departures thing on the page you have open?
So I didn't really go through that rundown just yet, so I can go through that right now real quick.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I think Patrick Queen is one of them. Is he not?
Yes. Yeah. So
and that's a tough one.
Yes, I agree. So as a refresher, we talked about it before, but on Bovada, the Ravens are the third highest odds to win the Super Bowl next year at plus 1,000. And this year,
I completely agree.
I agree too. And this year, the only new addition so far has been Derrick Henry, which obviously huge signing for many reasons. Derrick Henry has been like the quintessential Ravens like running back. I mean, it was meant to be. Obviously he's a little bit past his prime, but we'll get into that. Justin Matabuki, so huge season for the Ravens last year. He was a priority for the Ravens to re-sign. They franchise tagged him at first, and then they got a deal done with him for some pretty big money. They re-signed Malik Harrison, Brent Urban, Josh Johnson as one of the backup quarterbacks. Ardarius Washington had a solid season. Arthur Millette also had a decent season for their defensive backs. So the free agents right now that haven't gone to a different team just yet, you got Jadeveon Clowney, who did play pretty well for the Ravens this past year. Dalvin Cook was just a playoff signing. J.K. Dobbins hurt early in the year, didn't play. He only played the first game and didn't play any others. Sam Mustipher was a backup. Kyle Van Noy was a decent veteran leadership type of signing. Daryl Worley, he was okay. I think he only played a few games. Rock Yassin was pretty terrible. So I'm not even worried about that. Ronald Darby. Wasn't he on the Eagles at one point?
Yeah. So Darby won a ring with us in
That's what
2017.
I thought. Okay.
Yep. He was
So
our CB1 that year.
okay. So he's actually pretty like widely like a lot of Ravens fans hate the fact that he's not going to stay with the team. He still had a very good year last year. He went to Jacksonville. Devin Duvernay went to Jacksonville. So Duvernay was the more known for the special teams. He was the kick returner and punt returner.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was gonna say that when you got to him. Like, I saw his name when I was looking through just departures and signings and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I was actually a little surprised that the Ravens let him go. But once you finish with this, I actually brought up PFF's salary cap list.
Okay.
It's quite interesting. So
I got you. I knew the Ravens did not have much money to spend. So
no, they're in shambles right now, and I'm
yeah,
I'm actually quite shocked.
Lamar's contract has a lot to do with that. So
But see, that's what I'll get into.
okay.
But yeah,
So yeah, lost Gus Edwards. He's now at the Chargers. He just went Harbaugh to Harbaugh. Tyler Huntley now, I guess the third string for Cleveland because Jameis Winston signed as the backup to Watson. Um, and that's
uh,
Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley.
what a fucking team Cleveland is right now.
Yeah, they're
Cleveland is that team where their defense is so fucking good and it is getting wasted. Like,
yeah.
and it for us as fans of teams in that division, it's great, fantastic. But Jesus Christ, if Deshaun Watson comes back this year and actually looks like old Deshaun Watson, the whole AFC complexity changes instantly.
Sure.
Like,
It's crazy too because not only is their defense really good, but you got a guy like Nick Chubb. I mean, I know he got hurt last year, but still easily one of the top 5 running backs when he was healthy.
when Nick Chubb is healthy, I will stand on this rock even if I have to be alone. He is the best running back in the world.
He's amazing.
When he's healthy. Like, that guy's any game that dude actually gets to suit up and you're cheering for the opposing team, you're shitting bricks because he's just going to break off a 75-yarder.
Oh, yeah.
Break 9 tackles and make ESPN #1, and you're going to have to watch it for a week until your team plays somebody else.
Exactly. I hated playing against Nick Chubb every time. It sucked. And then not only do they have Nick Chubb, but they have Njoku, who's been a great tight end, and then Amari Cooper.
And Njoku burned his face, and he looks like a fucking comic book villain out here shitting on people. You're like, dude, you were already scary as somebody who's watching you play, and now you're wearing this badass freaking Phantom of the Opera mask. Like, come on, bro.
Exactly. And
Legend.
Both of those guys really good, but their offense just still terrible.
It's all about who distributes the rock. If the guy you have taking the snap every single game is not going to perform and use the talent, you're in shambles. And as much as football fans, you want the Browns to have a good year, even if you like somebody else,
right?
Just because it changes things up, it's just not happening right now.
Exactly. But yeah, just to finish it out, Tyler Ott, the long snapper, he's gone. Delshon Phillips back up. Patrick Queen, probably the biggest of all of the departures. He went to the Steelers, unfortunately. John Simpson, replaceable. Geno Stone was tied. I think he was tied for the most interceptions last season.
Yep.
And great year last year, especially alongside Kyle. Why is it Hamilton? Great duo there for the safeties. So now he has to be replaced. Like you said, Zeitler is the other biggest departure there. I hate that he's leaving. I'm okay with it being Detroit. But then, the others released Odell, released Tyus Bowser. Bowser was another kind of more backup. Morgan Moses was traded, and I don't know. Moses was okay. I'm not really it's nothing to write home about. Ronnie Stanley, I just hope he fucking steps up, because Ronnie Stanley is probably like the most frustrating of the offensive linemen that the Ravens have had, especially when you consider the fact they decided to trade Orlando Brown and keep him, and it's just frustrating.
Well, that's the other thing too. It's like it's especially crazy when you think where Orlando Brown has ended up now.
Exactly.
On Cincinnati, and you're like, you have to sit there and go like, shit, because I'm gonna go over Bengals too once we're done with the Ravens, because just for like 2 minutes, because they've had a quietly solid offseason.
For sure.
But like PFF here, I'll go over grades real quick for all three teams. Mm-hmm. So we'll start with Baltimore, because I'm like basically hovering over them. They actually have a B, which I think the reason they're getting a B is because their cap situation was really devastating.
Right.
And they knew that. Like, obviously, they all know that. Even with the cap going up, they were still like, oh, shit. Which is why the only high profile has been Derrick Henry. And they did get him good value for money. That contract is awesome. And I think for Henry, it was more, I know I'm older, but I want to go somewhere that I know we can win. Baltimore's an obvious choice. It just works. Cincinnati has a B+, because not only did they sign your boy Geno Stone for 2 years, they brought back Von Bell, who is familiar with the team. He's been here before. They bring in Zach Moss for a very discount deal, so they're still looking for another running back for the committee. Franchise tag T. Higgins, because they can't afford to lose him to anybody. It doesn't matter. And then tight end, you bring in Mike Gesicki, who has, everywhere he's been a good player.
Right.
So they get a B+, and then the Eagles, I think, are also a B+ right now. I'm scrolling down because they have tons of freaking paragraphs. Yeah. I think the Eagles are a B+ because I think, honestly, they're probably brought down by the confusion of the Kenny Pickett move. However, I know who Howie Roseman is. I know what the Kenny Pickett move is 100%. This is exactly what's going to happen, okay? We're going to have some undrafted, no-name QB as QB3. Mm-hmm. A team is going to lose their starter, and Howie Roseman, the moment that their starter gets hurt on that other team, is going to call them and say, hey, we have Kenny Pickett. What do you give us? 100%. He is literal trade. He is literal trade bait, and I love it because this is what we do here.
It wouldn't surprise me at all, for sure. Especially if it's a team like the Raiders or,
Well, that's a team I'm thinking of, too, because it's like, okay, you sign Gardner Minshew, and we know 100% you're going to draft a QB. We know it. Like, if the opportunity's there for Vegas to select a quarterback, if they could trade up and get one, they're going to do it because it's such a pressing need. I don't have that in my mock draft because you can't predict trades, but it's something that if it becomes available, it's going to happen. But then, if an injury happens on a team like that, it's like, you're not winning anything, but you still don't want to be embarrassed. So you'll make a move for somebody because it won't cost you that much. The same way it didn't cost us that much to get Kenny. So that's the logic in it. And that's what Howie likes to do, is just stockpile draft capital in the later rounds as just ammo. And a lot of GMs should seriously start taking notice on how well that's worked out for us.
Yep.
And the little 1-year signings. We got 4 compensatory picks this year. 4.
Yeah, that's crazy.
A third, 2 fifths, and a sixth. It's like, they're not, like, the fact that we got a third, we have a free 3rd round pick. That is a player that could be very impactful.
Oh, yeah.
So, I do wish the Ravens would do more of that, because you have some of the best players at their position in the league.
Yep.
And we know it, and the whole league knows it, which is why they're perennial. I mean, they're the 3rd best betting odds right now to win a Super Bowl. And it makes sense to me because their drafts, they always select the best available, and it's always a position of need. Like, I was when the Ravens took Kyle Hamilton after the Eagles traded up in front of him, like, it all made sense because the Eagles jumped Baltimore for that. We went from 16 to 14 to get the fucking big dude. Why am I forgetting his name?
Jordan Davis.
Yeah, big old Jordan Davis.
Yep.
And everybody's head was, okay, so if we hadn't done that, the Ravens would have taken Jordan Davis. So either way for the Eagles and Ravens, I think it was win-win because you would have gotten one or the other, and then we would have probably gotten one or the other.
Right.
Looking back at it, I wish we had Kyle Hamilton.
Kyle Hamilton is. I am so happy with the Kyle Hamilton pick.
That dude.
He's insane.
That dude is amazing. He is amazing. To be as young as he is, like, he went to Notre Dame. So in my head, I'm like, this dude's probably really, really, really intelligent.
Right.
Just as a person. So, and then he goes to Baltimore. I'm like, that is the best team in NFL history to be a safety.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Ever. Because you're just going to, you're going to have Ed Reed coaching you up. And then you're going to have Harbaugh and, past Ravens coaches because they all stay loyal. They're going to get you there. And, yeah, he's a stud. He's so fun to watch.
He came at the right time, too, with Roquan there. You got, a dominant linebacker to also, take away so much of the field that you don't even have to worry about.
Exactly.
Kyle Hamilton was just... I still have basketball in my head. I said Kyle Anderson. Kyle Hamilton is still, in that game, in the playoff game against the Chiefs, for the first half, he was the only defensive player doing anything. And he was making so many plays just by himself. It was ridiculous. So I wanted to say this about Patrick Queen. I hate the fact, I used to really, really hate the Steelers, but I have softened on the Steelers because my wife and her whole family are all Steelers fans.
Okay.
Did
you meet her? Did you meet her in Pittsburgh?
No, actually, I knew her from a while back through volleyball, and then once I moved to Pittsburgh, then we reconnected.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, but they are all diehard Steelers fans, and so it's if the Ravens lose, I'm I hope they're happy type of thing. So I've softened up on the Steelers a bit, but I do hate the fact that now they have to face Patrick Queen twice a year.
Yeah, exactly.
That definitely sucks. However, for the people that don't follow the Ravens that much, there was talk about the Ravens just releasing Patrick Queen before they ended up getting Roquan.
Yeah.
Because Patrick Queen as the number one linebacker was not working out.
No.
His pass coverage is terrible. Really bad. If you just need him for run stopping and spies and things like that, he'll be perfect for your team.
Yeah.
But if you're relying on him for pass coverage, it is not going to work out very well. And the Ravens saw that. But then once they brought in Roquan, who has just been dominant everywhere on the field, that unlocked Patrick Queen to literally just wreak havoc.
Exactly.
But
that was how I looked at your old duo.
True.
Ray Lewis and Suggs, it was they complemented each other in a way that it didn't matter, right? You knew all areas were covered. Because that was Patrick Queen's knock coming out of college, out of LSU, was he can't do these things because of just his athleticism. It's not something you can teach at this point. He's not nimble or fast enough, but he has the power that run defense, he's going to be that guy.
Exactly.
And that's why when you guys brought in Roquan, as a Bengals fan, I was like, fuck, because I knew exactly what that meant. They found their duo again. But now it's going to be interesting to see how the Ravens, replace this.
Well, so here's the thing. I'm not as upset as some other Ravens fans because I'm excited for Trenton Simpson. He was drafted in last year's draft. I believe he came from Clemson.
I'll look him up so you can keep elaborating. Yep, you were very correct, sir.
Okay. So I remember reading a lot of different things. He was similar to Patrick Queen in the fact of very good with run stopping, very good tackling, like behind the line of scrimmage and things like that. His pass coverage is but he was more athletic than Patrick Queen, is what I remember seeing. So, like, he had this whole year last year for his rookie season, sitting behind Roquan, Patrick Queen, and everybody. He played some snaps here and there, but now you go from learning that with that big duo to now stepping into, well, hopefully stepping into the role of Patrick Queen, still alongside one of the most dominant linebackers in the league right now. And I just think it is a match made in heaven. So I'm really excited for Simpson. And I think that while I don't think he's going to have the type of season that Patrick Queen had last year in his first year of like getting a lot of playing time, I'm not saying he's just going to step in and be dominant, but I think that, next season he'll show a lot of promise, and then the season after that he'll start to build on it. So while I do hate that they lost Patrick Queen, it was kind of a foregone conclusion. Like everyone was like, "Oh, resign him, resign him, resign him." It's like, look, Patrick Queen is demanding money that the Ravens can't pay. Like you just said, they are in shambles in terms of salary.
Oh, it's bad.
And I think you end up getting like $13 million a year or something like that.
Yeah,
they can't pay that. It's just plain and simple.
So let me do a basic Trenton Simpson to Patrick Queen comparison because I have both their combine. I'm going to use combine numbers.
Okay.
For just basic athleticism, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Trenton Simpson is 6'2". Patrick Queen is 6 feet flat.
Mm-hmm.
Simpson weighs more. He's 235 pounds. Patrick Queen's 229. Simpson has a bigger arm span, bigger hands, and this number shocks me. This dude is 6'2", 235, and he ran a 4.43 40. That is fast as fuck.
That is insane.
Oh, and here's a strength number, okay? Patrick Queen did 18 reps on the bench press. 18. Mm-hmm. Trenton Simpson did 25. That says everything I need to know, because that's your heart, that's your will to push, and that is just your bare, like, just grown man strength. Like, but the reason the bench press is even a thing at the combine is literally to see how far you're willing to go.
Right.
Through pain and just like endurance and everything. Because Simpson didn't do all the drills. He actually only apparently did like 3 that were measured, which surprises me. But based on the speed alone, that is exactly what you want in the middle of your field from a big dude, is a guy who has the speed to get range to the outside. And that's, like we were just saying, Queen couldn't do that, and it was clear. He didn't have the agility on the first step. He didn't have the ability to get up to a top speed quickly, which would allow tight ends who were more agile to just get space way too easily. But that's why they brought in Roquan when they did, because they were like, okay, we see the hole, we got to fill the hole. Roquan Smith is a top 5 linebacker, basically as an all-rounder in football, and we're Baltimore, so we love linebackers. Like, yep. It just fit. It just
love
it
linebackers
just fit.
And
so,
safeties.
Yeah. Like,
and I just want to say, the Ravens got Roquan for nothing. The Ravens got Roquan for a 2nd and a 5th round pick.
Yep. Because Chicago doesn't know how to value anything.
No.
At all.
Like, there's no way that should only be what you get for Roquan.
They're like, oh, he's going to be a perennial 2nd team or 1st team All-Pro at a really important position that's undervalued every year. All right, let's just trade him away for not, like, they could have gotten a 2nd and a 3rd. You're never going to get a 1st unless the guy, you're like looking at him going, he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
But you could have gotten more than a 5th in accompaniment to the 2nd. And obviously Chicago's going to kick themselves for that because they know. But, like, good for the Ravens because
Oh
that is literally the type of player that they thrive on having.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, if you look at the Eagles, just to go back to like them, it's like they are proof that you need good linebacker play or you are fucked every single week. Like, and if you can't like build that chemistry in training camp and everything going into a season, it's going to be obvious.
Oh yeah.
Because you brought up Nicholas Morrow earlier.
Yep.
That fucking guy. I am so glad he's gone. Like, you have no idea. That dude, it was the same, but it was the same problem as Patrick Queen. If that dude had to be in pass coverage, oh my God. Like, there was one game, they did like a stat track on just his allowed catches.
Mm-hmm.
He gave up like 10 catches for 170 yards when he was the primary guy in coverage. That's like that's more than half of the QB stats for that game. Like, just on him, because it's like, all right, is Morrow covering him? All right, cool, free catch, thanks. Give me like 1 minute. I'm gonna go use the bathroom.
Okay.
So if you want to talk about anything, go ahead.
Yeah, I brought up the Bengals thing,
right
so
back.
we'll talk about the Bengals when he gets back. But the big thing with the Ravens to me is just that they still have kept intact a lot of their important positions. Obviously, Lamar Jackson, we all know that, but Mark Andrews is still there. You have his backup, who's probably going to take over once he's done, in Isaiah Likely, and he's proven to be a very, very good tight end. While he, is just preparing to take over as the number one as Mark Andrews gets a little bit older. And right now, they were the third highest odds to win the Super Bowl, but on Bovada, they're the second highest odds to win the AFC behind only the Kansas City Chiefs, because the only other team ahead of them in Super Bowl odds in general were the 49ers. So they're coming in as some pretty heavy favorites, and it's all with good reason. The one thing that really sucks, which isn't even player base, is it sucks that they lost so many coaches. They lost a lot of defensive coaches at that too. Like McDonald was a very, very good defensive coordinator. Obviously, they lose him to a head coaching position, but they lost 3 or 4 other coaches on the defensive side of the ball that just weren't. I don't want to say they aren't replaceable, but those guys just have a lot of reason that the defense was good. So losing a lot of those coaches for the Ravens is one thing that I'm worried about, like, because I loved McDonald. At least Monken is still there, so the offensive side is going to still be intact. But losing, I think the grand total was 5 coaches on the defensive side of the ball. Kind of sucks.
Dude, that's like a whole staff.
Yeah. Yeah, they lost a ton of people.
I see that, like, I think, here's my honest opinion as an outsider, like, that would be tough for most teams to recover from.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just defense is so, like, when you think of defense, you do think of the Ravens.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think the way their front office is, and then the way they still they still allow the input of former coaches and players, they'll find the right guys. It might take a year for it to look like it's gelling perfectly, but I wouldn't worry too much.
Yeah. It's just one
and
thing
you have
in the back of my mind.
Yeah, but you have talented players on the field too that are going to play the way they play, and they'll give you everything. So
True.
All right, do you want to jump into salary cap here?
Sure.
For a couple minutes, because I have this list up and I'm actually like, holy shit.
Yeah.
The numbers I'm looking at right here explain a lot. So the top 5 teams in terms of current cap space available for spending, in order. The Commanders are number 1.
Okay.
Titans are number 2. Patriots, Bears, Texans.
Okay.
I'm looking at Houston right now going, you guys must feel real good about yourselves because you shocked the whole NFL world last year with very young talent. You made it way deeper than you thought you were going to. And you have that much to spend, and they have been very active in trades and free agency. But then I look at like the Commanders and Titans at 1 and 2, and the Bears being at 4. No one wants to play there. That's the sad truth. Like the Patriots are going to join that too because Belichick's gone. So,
although I will say there has been a lot of good words about Mayo.
Exactly. Like I'm not going to knock him at all, but I'm just saying like
But I get what you
almost the unanimous GOAT of coaches is not there anymore starting this season. So it's like it's tough, and especially like you just traded Mac Jones. Like you have you have nobody on the offense now. Like I mean, when I say no, I mean no. Like
right.
That's a tough sell for players who've been in the league and want to win. To go there,
I think
with a bunch of unknowns.
Like, Hunter Henry?
Yeah, and I'm like, that dude would be like tight end 3 on a bunch of teams that are actually competitive.
Right.
Like if he went to the Ravens or the Eagles, he's literally tight end 2 minimum. You know what I mean? Like he's obviously Mark Andrews and Dallas Goedert. Like,
yeah,
you're not them, so.
I would even put Isaiah Likely over him at this point.
Oh, I would too. That dude is a freak. That guy's a freak athlete.
I know.
But these are the 2 teams that should scare the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
In the top 10, right next to each other with a margin of only $190,000 in cap space, are the Cincinnati Bengals and the Philadelphia Eagles. Both teams have $43 million in open cap right now.
Jesus.
And they've both been in Super Bowls in the last 3 years.
Yeah, that's pretty insane.
Like, this is the thing I saw the other day. And I know there's probably other comparisons for other teams, but this one still made my brain just, like, actually deep fry itself. ESPN posted this. It was a picture of Dak Prescott. Mm-hmm. And underneath it was a picture of Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, and Darius Slay. And it literally said, Dak Prescott's contract takes up more cap space than these 6 players combined. And it was literally like 4 Pro Bowlers and 2 guys who will be Pro Bowlers. And I'm like, who the fuck is running Dallas's freaking financials? How have you structured Dak Prescott's contract to ruin your franchise? Whereas here in Philadelphia, we've been to 2 Super Bowls in 6 years. We won one of them. We have a guy signed for like the 3rd most lucrative contract in QB history. But him plus 5 other contracts combined is still less than yours. And he's won 1 playoff game his whole career. How is that? How? That blows my mind. And then I say the same thing with Cincinnati. I'm like, you were just there.
Yeah.
And you have a receiver room that's still untouched, in my opinion. Like, the only team with a receiver duo as good as T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, I think, at the moment, is now Minnesota with Justin Jefferson and the dude whose name is escaping me.
Addison.
He was a rookie. Yeah, that duo is scary as shit.
I know. It was funny because I've always been a big Addison fan because, I mean, he went to Pitt.
Well, you know I was because he transferred from Pitt to SC, so it was perfect.
And he played with Kenny when he was at Pitt. And Addison had like an ungodly amount of touchdowns that year.
Yeah.
And him and Kenny are what made Pitt as good as they were in that one season. But I was like, yo, I'm putting Addison way up there for like, especially in like dynasty fantasy football leagues and things like that. Like, I got Addison way up there. And he's just been amazing. And the fact that they now have those 2 with TJ Hawkinson is just insane. It just sucks now that they don't have a quarterback.
But here's the thing. But this is I was going to bounce right off this, right? So Minnesota has already traded up to 11th.
True.
They just did that the other day. So it is very clear now that that's what they're trying to do. They're going to try and move up. It might be before draft day, it might be on draft day. Mm-hmm. But even if it's not, this is the only mock draft pick I'll say until we get to that. Mm-hmm. I have them taking Michael Penix Jr.
Okay.
Because I think with what they have at the moment and his versatility and his arm strength is unbelievable. Like, that fits. So
True.
them losing Kirk Cousins to me was like, it made sense because you've had him for years now and you couldn't really get over the hump. So as a franchise, you don't want to just you don't want to fall into that hole of insanity, which is just repeating the same thing. Mm-hmm. So it was better to allow him to walk in free agency now than pay him for another 3-4 years when you weren't sure if you'd ever actually get there. But you have the young talent at the weapons positions to a degree that's just nuts. Like, you have a 1 and 2 receiver for their lives if you just do contracts right. You don't need anyone else. And then you traded for a tight end who's just excellent. So, you're set. You need a running back. We know that because you got rid of Dalvin Cook, and I think Alexander Madison actually just signed with the Raiders. So, your 1 and 2 are gone. So, you're going to have to sort that out. But then they did, because they signed Aaron Jones. Because the Green Bay Packers are let's be stupid and get rid of a guy who's been loyal to us and been just as productive, and let's overpay for Josh Jacobs. Yeah, that whole situation. I'm like, what are we doing? But the Minnesota Vikings are still in an okay spot as long as they do this right. In my opinion, I think they can still nail this. Let me actually see roster wise who is currently on the roster for the Vikings at QB. Let's take a look. Oh, dear Lord. Okay, well, they definitely need to draft one or they're going to be in shambles, as we've discussed with other teams, because at the current moment, the depth chart reads QB1, Sam Darnold. And that ain't going to cut it.
I forgot about that.
That's a good backup to have, though. If you're gonna have a dude on the roster, I don't hate Sam Darnold at all. I think the Jets were a disaster when he got drafted to them. And then when he got traded to Carolina, they were a worse disaster, even though that should be impossible. They were. I don't think the guy has had any chance to show that he has talent. When he was with the Jets, they didn't have Garrett Wilson yet, and even if they did, it was for 1 year max, and that wasn't gonna save your spot on that team. And then you go to Carolina, and they just gutted everything. DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel got traded out. So, I don't know. But looking at this, too, the Ravens, this is where I was going to bring the Ravens in. They're 180,000 in the negative right now. They have literally less than zero.
Oof.
So that's why I'm worried for them, because I'm there's still cuts to be made. And contract restructuring has to happen. The Eagles have done that with multiple already this offseason, and then done extensions, which gives you space, which is massively important. Mm-hmm. But the one team that I know at some point here is they're not gonna be in the AFC Championship every year anymore, is the Chiefs, because they're in the negative again by $6 million though. So there's real moves that need to happen. The one team in here that I think has sorted it out since then, the Chargers were at the very bottom, $26 million over the cap, but they already got rid of Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and Austin Eckler, so I think they're way in the clear now.
True.
So they're fine, but that's just a lot. To you're going into free agency that far behind.
Yeah.
I think because of when this was updated, I'm sure the Ravens are in the green now because they released like a couple guys and traded. You know what I mean? Like whatever the moves they made, probably they're good.
Right.
But then you look like when you see the top. Like let me do this count right because it doesn't have numbers next to it. But let's see, top 5. Yeah, so the Eagles had the 9th most, Bengals had the 10th most, Lions, Packers, Vikings are 12, 13, and 14. Those are all playoff teams
True.
with like tons of space. So like it's those kind of situations where like as an Eagles fan, it's like yes, last year ended like horribly, and it hurt because we were like on such a good high at 10-1. To see it just disintegrate was like wow.
Yeah.
But you sit back and go, okay, I can see where the schemes were wrong. I can just use logic and common sense to know that there are improvements that can be made pretty easily. And Howie is a good guy to do that. And then Sirianni, just as long as he has input but not control, I think he's a good head coach. But I think like we need coordinators with their own mind. And I think obviously Vic Fangio, he'll tell anyone to fuck off. And then Kellen Moore, he's young, but the dude is just like super talented. So like we're in a good spot. And then for the Ravens, like you were saying, bless you, with their coaching staff, it's like we just need to see. But I trust in the people who are making the decisions, in the hires, that I think it'll be okay. So like they're in a good spot. But it just shocks me to see some of the teams that are at the bottom of this. Like the Bills, Dolphins, Cowboys are 7th from bottom, which they don't know how to make contracts. The Niners are pretty low, but they're paying a lot of superstars, so it makes sense for them. Right. But they're not in the negative. So you're like, they're doing better than other teams, at least as far as like counting the money. Even though, I mean, the Commanders' amount of cap space is actually nuts. I'm reading this now. $81 million. Like, if they actually get people to want to play for them, they can make a team.
Yeah, I mean, as long as people want to play with them.
That's a lot of money. Like,
true.
They could just be like, here, we'll give you more than that guy. And they'll be like, all right.
We'll give you whatever you want.
Free handies every single practice. Let's go. We signed Riley Reid to take care of the locker room.
Automatically.
It just dude's reading the contract on a piece of paper and it says signing bonus Riley Reid at the bottom. You're like, ooh.
They're like, oh, fine print.
Excellent.
I will say, because you brought up the Dolphins, they just recently there was a report said the Dolphins are showing interest in Odell Beckham, and Beckham will visit with the Dolphins on Thursday, according to Josina Anderson from CBS Sports. So that will be interesting. If they possibly have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Odell Beckham, that's pretty.
Well, it's. Odell Beckham at this point in his career needs to know he is not the guy. And I think he does, which his maturity has evolved to that point now, which is great for him.
Yeah.
But he's still good enough that if he is that like low of a compliment, like if you have like you go to a team like that, you're wide receiver 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And you literally know that before you even put pen to paper. You're going to be stoked, though, because at this point in his career, he just wants to win.
Yep.
That's all that matters to him, which is why Baltimore, because they played superb last year. They really did. It's a shame both our teams ended the way they did.
Exactly.
But he would be such a good fit there. Like, I can't actually see that meeting going badly.
He's been kind of like a mentor type of guy, too. Like, he was really helping along Zay Flowers through his rookie season. You could see him consoling a lot of guys like at the end of that playoff game too, which is something you would never really see from Odell Beckham in years past. And I'd be curious to see if it moves their odds at all, because the Dolphins' odds on Bovado right now are pretty low when it comes to winning the Super Bowl. I mean, they even have the Chargers ahead of the Dolphins, which
I think that's coaching. Honestly, that's coaching.
true. I mean, I like McDaniel. However, it does well. I also think the big part for the Dolphins is a lot of the questions on defense. Like their defense it improved as the season went on because guys got healthier. However, they lost Christian Wilkins.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and Vic Fangio left them, so their coordinator situation's super in question too.
True.
And like, I think they have a handful of free agents. Are you able to bring up the Dolphins on that page you had?
Let me see.
And then just scroll down to where it says like free agents, because I think some of their big names are actually like available for other teams right now.
No, I mean,
I think
it's on
like,
top of that.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
On top of that, they have a lot of guys that are just getting older too. Like their defense really wasn't all that young. However, I just saw here that they did sign Jordan Poyer.
That's like a reliable signing because he's not young either. But
true.
But it's a smart signing for the money based on just needs you have, because like they have a lot. Because they released Xavier Howard, I think. They just flat out released him for cap space. And he's obviously he was one of their like major outside defensive threats. That 100% they're going to miss. They're gonna feel that. But then but even actually what we see right here, that they bring in Jack Driscoll from the Eagles, who's been coached by the best O-line coach in football now since he got drafted.
Yep.
That's a very smart signing. I'm gonna miss Driscoll as even a bench guy. Like
they definitely need offensive line. That's one of their biggest things for sure.
Yeah, because Tua, unless they're trying to advertise for what CTE can do to a young human being, they need to get some fucking O-line in there to protect Tua.
Exactly.
Because Tua is like too sweet of a human being to get his brain ruined.
Exactly. Like they bring in Shaq Barrett too, who's also getting older. Kendall Fuller, I'm pretty sure, is a little bit on the older side.
He's not young at all. I'll tell you his age in 0.2 of a second.
Okay.
Let's see here. We have a total of we are older than Kendall Fuller by about like 3 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he's old.
Yep. We're right with him. So
okay.
And then Jordan Poyer, I think, is older than us actually by like a few years.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Born in 1991.
Oh yeah. Yep. He's up there.
Especially for a position of such physicality.
Exactly.
Like it's not like corner where you're occasionally making tackles, but you're mostly hoping you're pass breakups or picks, whatever. Safety's job is literally to hit people. Like, and Poyer, that's his career, has been hitting people.
Oh yeah.
Like it's a good signing for them, because if they draft a guy in that position, he's the perfect mentor.
Yep.
Which if I had to guess, that's what I'm going to assume they're going for there. But
that would make sense.
Because none of these other signings are super high profile.
Right. And they don't even have on here like
the same thing the other one did.
Yeah. Miami only likes to talk about the guys that stayed, apparently. Stayed or signed.
Basically, what Miami's saying is, if you left, fuck you.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
I do like the Jonnu Smith signing, because since Gesicki left, they haven't had anything at tight end that is worth writing home about at all.
But that's why I look at Mike Gesicki. I'm like, you're a Bengal now. Let's fucking go, my boy.
True. Very
Let's
true.
go.
Especially because the Bengals need a tight end that finally sticks, instead of swapping tight ends every single year. I thought Irv Smith was going to be a good tight end signing for them and be able to be that guy, but obviously that didn't happen.
I think the Irv Smith, he had a lot of struggles in Minnesota.
Yep.
And I think it was just one of those. They were gambling on a change of scenery will help him be the player we think he could be.
Right.
But injuries and whatever, it just seems like. I hope for Irv he can play long enough to have money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just kept away, so he's, you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, it's a disaster. But I like that they gave him a shot. I don't think he's the guy. I think you could have him on your roster, special teams, or like tight end 3 for pass blocking. But as far as like your reliable every down potential pass catcher at tight end, he's, unfortunately, they needed to invest at that position a lot more.
Right.
Like, Minnesota knew that. They were like, okay, we're kind of rough right now at that. Rudolph's old. They let him walk the year before. They were like, wow, Irv Smith is, you know what I mean? Like, whatever we have isn't it. And they were like, TJ Hawkinson, we're making the trade with a division rival just like that. And
which was amazing. For them, that was a great trade.
Yeah, well, but then you look at the flip side, too. Detroit with Sam Laporta.
True.
My goodness. But it's the same pedigree. They both went to Iowa.
Yep.
So they knew what they were getting. Because Iowa, if there's one thing actually, there's two things. There's two things Iowa as a university does well. It's not win ball games. It is produce centers and tight ends. Every single year in a draft, you will see one of those two drafted in the first round out of Iowa. And their defense is always solid.
George Kittle went to Iowa, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Iowa literally, like, they have a factory in that hospital that they wave to in the basement, and they just make tight ends in there.
Oh, God. Speaking of Iowa and everything, let's get to the final topic of the night. We have our mock drafts. We did some of those. So I actually did, on the PFF mock draft thing, I did one where I controlled every team, and I just picked kind of more so based on need, but also put a little value in just like best available. And then I did one where I was only the Ravens, and it kind of simulated everything based on a mix of the public consensus along with PFF's rankings. And it had a little bit more weight on positional need than best available. So they're I will say the one they look very different in general, but I enjoy what the Ravens got in both of them. So we can start things off with saying, like, right now, the heavy favorite for the number one pick, especially according to Bovada, is Caleb Williams.
Oh, yeah.
He's negative 4,000 to go number one. Compared to Jaden Daniels, who's plus 900.
Here's what I don't get, right? Okay. Justin Fields and Caleb Williams' play style.
Yep.
Are they're quite similar. Like, they're not exact. They're quite similar. So, if you're the Bears, things really didn't work out with Fields to the point where you had to trade him for a 6th round pick. Like, but yet another comment on how Chicago doesn't know how to make fucking deals. But, whatever. But I'm looking at it like, would you not logically then try something different? I look at Drake May.
Mm-hmm.
He's more of your pocket passer. He has that ability more, in my opinion. He can run in the way that Josh Allen can run, where it's just like, please stop, because you're going to get hurt, even though you're okay at it. Like, just chill.
Right.
So from that mindset, I'm just like, you're going to take Caleb Williams because you're predictable, but you shouldn't maybe, because there's a reason you keep being the bottom of a division that's actually pretty open right now. Like, as soon as Aaron Rodgers was out of Green Bay, that should have been your, like, all the alarms going off. Like, okay, make something happen now. Like, right now. And they didn't. And they still haven't. But because you look at Pittsburgh, it's like they signed Russell Wilson for $10 because they could, because he knows he's getting paid by Denver regardless.
Right.
So he wasn't asking for shit from anyone because he's like, I can end up anywhere and I'm making $40 million this year, so cool. Chicago, it's the obvious choice. I think you and I both probably put Caleb Williams.
Yep. Yeah, this was the one that I did where I controlled all the teams. So yeah,
I hand wrote mine. Here, I'm gonna try and hold this so the camera can see. Let's go right there.
Yeah, there it is. Yep, Caleb Williams.
The first 3 picks are quarterbacks.
So I actually
didn't want to do that. I didn't want to, but I think that's how it's going to go, unfortunately. And I hate when drafts do this, but like,
I actually did the one where I controlled all the teams. I just for fun kind of threw a trade in there.
Did you have to? Are you subscribed to PFF?
No. You can do just a first round mock draft if you're not subscribed.
I want to let me try and open that on my screen. I wish I had a way. We got to figure out a way because we're going to do this again. I think this is actually really cool. I don't know. I mean, we can maybe get to a point where it's weekly, but we'll figure that out just time wise.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll figure out PFF another time because I love that website. But
yeah, this is nice.
I used it for info when I hand wrote this because it was they have more just random details than most.
Right.
And with no trades, because that's what my mock draft is the assuming there's no trades.
Right.
I fully expect that there will be probably 3 or 4 is my guess. Bigger ones, and then there'll be pick swaps where they move up 1 just to get in the way of someone else doing it. Because the Eagles have done that 3 years in a row now. So for the one I did, I was just literally what do they need and what's available? And if their GMs are, pretend all the GMs are more okay, we have this as a very crucial need and that is the best dude available over every other position we need, that's what they're taking. So that's what mine is. So
yeah, that makes sense. And mine, where I was controlling all the teams for fun, I did a little trade. It was just one, but I did the Patriots traded back to 5 with the Chargers, and they traded the Chargers traded the 5 and pick number 68 or 69, whatever they had, to move up to 3 because the Chargers didn't need a quarterback. The Cardinals didn't need a quarterback. And if you're the Chargers, essentially, if the Patriots don't go Marvin Harrison, the Cardinals are going to.
Yeah.
So I had them make that trade to trade up to get Marvin Harrison at 3, which left Neighbors at 4 for the Cardinals, and then the Patriots still getting Jaden Daniels.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say is we can literally jump basically right to pick 5 here because I have Caleb Williams, Drake May, and then New England taking Jaden Daniels.
Okay.
The Cardinals taking Marvin Harrison Jr. And then if the Chargers were not to make the move that you just said here, they would take Malik Neighbors.
Right.
Who is also talented, but it's Marvin Harrison Jr. is literally such an incredible standout.
Oh, huge.
It is almost impossibly rare in sports to see a son at the same position with more potential than his father. And Marvin Harrison's in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. But Marvin Harrison Jr. looks so incredible. There's nothing I hate more than the fact that he goes to Ohio State.
I know.
Oh my God, I wish you weren't wearing those stupid stars in your helmet, son, but fuck. But I mean, he is incredible. And it's such an obvious, if another team on this planet is going to take him, they have to trade with New England.
Oh, yeah.
Period. Because, you are, in my opinion, you're not going to be able to send Chicago or Washington enough to move out of those spots.
No, not at all. And it was funny, the one that the computer drafted, which was this one, it still had Caleb Williams and Drake May 1 and 2, but it actually had Marvin Harrison Jr. going to the Patriots, and then Joe Alt, the tackle from Notre Dame, going to the Cardinals, and I was like,
nah.
I don't know about that.
Well, what I would say to look up on this one that you're showing me is what day was it published? Because if it was before Marquise Brown got traded,
that's a good point.
Then there's a tiny bit of potential that, you know what I mean, the needs might have shifted a little bit. Like, obviously they need O-line because Kyler Murray cannot be running fucking laps every single snap. Which is basically what he's been doing since he got drafted, unfortunately.
Right.
But like when you have a Justin Jefferson or a Jamar Chase in a draft, which is what Marvin Harrison is this year to like the same degree, if not more, you're not passing on him if you don't need a QB. Like, he's the guy.
Exactly.
And you have a guy in Kyler Murray that you clearly like enough that you haven't moved on yet.
Exactly.
So you're going to give him something. And then if he can't succeed now with that something, that's when you're going to go, all right, time to go.
And unless the Patriots have some sort of like trick up their sleeve that they're going to trade way up again and get a quarterback, there's no way they're going Marvin Harrison when they know that their only starting quarterback right now is Bailey Zappi. It's just not going to be.
Exactly.
So, and there's no way Jaden Daniels falls all the way to 11. If he falls all the way to 11 to the Vikings,
that's insane to me. They win the draft if that happens. Like, if that actually happens, the same way like the Eagles in past drafts have just sat back and the players they wanted fell to them, which is why the last like 2 drafts the Eagles have been rated as like the top 2. Like, there are certain situations where you do get to sit back and kind of hope, but if you're the Vikings and your number one position of need is QB, and there's this many teams ahead of you with the same need, like, it's not happening. There's no way. And Jaden Daniels is good enough of a talent. It's not like previous draft classes where it was like, they're going to reach for QBs. These guys are all pretty good.
Right.
And there's a reason that every mock draft has them going high, because they're actually talented enough to be there for once. It's not like the stat I just saw the other day. It was whatever 2 drafts had, I think it was 2020 and 21, maybe, or the year after that. Whatever, 21 and 22 with Purdy and Lawrence.
Oh, yeah.
They're the only 2 QBs out of both full draft classes projected to start week 1.
Yeah, which is...
And there was 19 total quarterbacks selected in those drafts, and the other 17 are literally backups or gone completely. That, like, disaster. So
bad. By the way, Paranormal in the Funhouse here said new sub, and Steelers fan asking if there's any moves for the Steelers or any big news on other teams today. So we actually touched on this a little bit earlier in our episode, but I guess the biggest news we talked about so far that happened today was Odell Beckham with mutual interest with the Dolphins. He'll be meeting with them on Thursday. The Eagles signed what was his name? Tyler Hill, I think. Yep. Tyler Hall. Michael Gallup is visiting with the Ravens. Steven Sims returned to the Texans. Jadeveon Clowney will be visiting with the Jets. Really, that's like Deontay Foreman signed with the Browns. I guess we could throw that in there.
That's a solid. I actually like that a lot because his running style is very similar to Nick Chubb's. It's very straightforward.
Yeah.
Power running. So
the
that's
Commanders are visiting with JJ McCarthy. That's like probably the other biggest news. So
yeah. Okay. I mean, Steelers wise, biggest. I mean, obviously you have your Russell Wilson, so you can feel either way about that. However, you have them trading for Justin Fields. Feel about that. However, like, that's your opinion. As a Steelers fan, I'll let you decide how you feel. You signed Patrick Queen, solid for the interior defense. I'd be happy about that. I think that's a good fit. You traded Deontay Johnson, which, from what I heard, he was clashing with coaching anyway and the situation last season. So he's a good receiver, but if you're looking for your locker room to gel a little better going forward, that's probably a good thing. Yep. It's just a matter of, like, as a Steelers fan, I'll say just watch the draft with a little grain of salt and just know like it's gonna be interesting. So
Yeah, I agree. And they said, I'm excited we clean house this year. Glad our QB room changed. I get it. I mean, like I said, I'm a Kenny Pickett guy. I still believe that he can be a starting quarterback. I know Steelers fans never want to listen to me about that because of the seasons that have gone on. But I'm just going to say this. Kenny, without Matt Canada, looked good, and then he got hurt. He had one full game and a quarter, and he looked good in that time, and then he got hurt. Just saying, I think he can still be a starting quarterback. Paranormal here also asked, what are the chances you think we'll get DJ Chark or Odell Beckham on the Steelers in free agency? A lot of people haven't mentioned DJ Chark. I'm interested in him.
Here's my honest answer to that. I think if you're the Steelers and you're a Steelers fan, I think you would prefer DJ Chark at this point over Odell Beckham. I mean, it's age, it's injury history, it's like Odell is in a point to be a mentor, age-wise. He's been in the league since 2014. Let me just get Chark up here so I'm not completely talking shit out of my ass. I know I'm not, but yeah, he came. All right, so Chark came into the league in 2018. He's a younger guy. I think he has a higher upside at this point, and if you have Russell Wilson now, who's going to be in a position to mentor Justin Fields, and they are very similar, if you're actually hoping that builds to something, you would want Chark to be the guy in there at this point because he can compete, I think, at a higher level. And you're obviously going to be drafting in more talent now. And by the time those new talents come in, Chark will be older with more like experience to then mentor, whereas Odell will probably then be retired. So I'd say I would hope in your position, I would say hope for Chark. But if Beckham signs, don't be mad either because he's still very solid and he has taken on more of a mentorship role.
It's actually funny because on SpoTrack, which I go to for a lot of contract things, they put up a list of 4 comparable players for DJ Chark, and it's Valdez Scantling.
Okay.
Sammy Watkins.
Ooh, I don't like that one.
Tim Patrick, and Odell Beckham.
But that's like perfect though, because if they're comped, you take the younger guy every time.
Exactly.
And the guy with less injury history, so
exactly. And it has Chark's market value at about 10.9 million for like average per year.
Yeah.
Which Beckham's was 15. So
and Beckham's is only that because he contributed a lot to their Super Bowl run with the Rams before getting hurt in the Super Bowl. Which I was heartbroken for him because of all the games to get hurt in, Jesus Christ, like not that one. Right. But then I think about it too. It's like, okay, you pay less for Chark, and if you like construct the contract in such a way that amount that he wants is in bonuses or like guaranteed or however, and they can structure it so it's not as huge of a cap hit. Mm-hmm. It's just a better all around selection, and it gives you more flexibility going forward if someone like more high profile becomes available. And I think you have to look at it that way.
No, for sure. I agree.
I don't know who I had then. Yeah, well, we'll get to Pittsburgh in the draft thing too. Let me see if they're down here.
We might as well just stick around for the mock draft here.
Well, let's just like breeze through picks 6 through 10 because I think 6 through 10 is a bunch of like, yeah. So I'll go my 6 through 10.
Okay.
I have the New York Giants taking. I'm going to try and read this right, even though I've been drinking a little bit. Let's see. So is this the one you made with the little mini trade?
This is the one I made.
Okay, sweet. So I have the Giants taking Alunamia Fashanu, tackle out of I have him a little higher than you did, I think.
I have him actually at 20th to the Steelers.
To the Steelers, ironically. That's perfect.
Yeah.
We have the same, I have Tennessee taking Joe All.
Okay, that makes sense.
because he's available at that point. So it's like, all right, I have Atlanta taking Dallas Turner, who is an edge rusher out of Alabama.
Yep.
Chicago taking Laiatu Latu out of UCLA, edge rusher. Let's see. The Jets will take J.C. Latham, who is a offensive tackle, because their O-line they need to get their O-line to a point where they know it's secure.
True. That's for sure.
And because whatever quarterback they've put behind there, like Rodgers had a freak injury, and it wasn't because of O-line. It's because he played in MetLife, and that field decided it was going to remove his Achilles. Say it didn't. At some point in the season, he was going to start getting smoked because their O-line is just, it's not good enough. And they know it isn't. And I think that's where they have to go.
Right.
Like, if they don't go there, I will be genuinely surprised. Like, you have offensive talent to a point now. I think you're okay with it where it is, knowing that Rodgers is going to play this coming season. So protect him. Like, if you're going to have these couple years with this dude, like, just protect him, and then whatever quarterback comes after Rodgers will feel secure coming in there, that he has an O-line in front of him that has some years of experience by the time they're there. And this actually is a pretty solid draft.
Yeah, for sure.
Tackles and guards. So,
Paranormal here says, loving the show already, by the way. Glad I found y'all. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Always
appreciate It's our first episode doing football.
Yeah.
Because we like, his is usually basketball. And I just wanted to do this because he was like my best friend in high school. So it was literally like, let's just A, reconnect, and B, we're super passionate about everything sports. So, like, I figured let's do some football because I know we both love it too.
Yeah. So we appreciate the love for sure. He said, it's your first. Sounds like you've been doing it for a while. That's awesome. Well, you guys have a schedule. We will at some point. We haven't fleshed out a full schedule, but we are planning to put together something. We also don't know if it's just going to be football, if it's going to be all sports, what that might look like. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, we are still in the works. So we'll put some on YouTube and everything like that about what we do end up deciding. So
yeah, I think the main part of it will be football.
Yeah.
Some episodes, like say something say 1 week where like a ton of news broke and football needs to just like get all the attention, because it can happen like that. But I would say, like, let's say like every single one will be like 60 to 75% football, and then we'll sprinkle some other goodness in there. If there's just big sports news, just fun stuff to talk about. Like, that's what we're trying to do. It's not supposed to be some, like, over-the-top, super serious, mega official, like, podcast. But we'll try to give you all the details that you would want to hear anyway, and just have some fun. Because if you're not having fun as the listener, then we're not going to have as much fun as the people giving you that, because that's kind of our goal. It's just,
and on top of that, if we're not even having fun, then listeners definitely aren't having fun. So
exactly, like if I'm sitting here, if you come on and I'm like this, just know it was a slow week.
Exactly. Paranormal says, I look forward to the football for sure. Also, I watch the Yankees, so I watch baseball. If you do baseball, that's cool too. We probably will have some baseball in here thrown in.
Yeah. I can
recently getting back into baseball, so
I can definitely do a lot of baseball. I'll say, just because you mentioned the Yankees, I'll say be excited for Juan Soto, because I think he's going to find himself again. But obviously, I'm very sorry to hear about Garrett Cole. Like, I hope he's actually okay, but he's one of the best pitchers of our generation. So if he is out for a certain amount of time, obviously that's going to be a huge, huge knock, especially since what's his face? Oh my god, Blake Snell just signed with the Giants and not the Yankees.
Right.
So, but yeah, we'll have a bit of everything. So it's awesome that you're here, because this is what helps us though, is like you're giving us questions, and we love sports enough that like we'll just jump in, because that's what sports should be about. It's about like the communities that cheer for these teams. So
Exactly. Yep, I completely agree. So just for concerns of time, because I don't have too much time,
yeah,
we'll jump through here. So I was looking at the Giants. I put Joe Alt there for the Giants, especially just because, like, I remember seeing a stat where Daniel Jones was like one of the most sacked quarterbacks since he came into the league. So they obviously need help. The Tennessee one, I kind of went back and forth just because I know they signed Calvin Ridley now. They still have Hopkins, but Traylon Burks is butt cheeks. So I was like, I threw O'Dunn's in there because I was like, I feel like, best available at the time if they decide to trade that pick, whatever, or if they decide to trade him in general, or even, I don't know what their plan is with Hopkins, especially because Hopkins is older now. He's past 30. So, like, they might have a plan to trade him and keep O'Dunn's and Ridley after giving Ridley a crap ton of money. Falcons wise, I put in Cooper DeJean because I think shoring up the defensive backs for them is definitely, I don't want to say like top priority, but I think that's definitely up there. Especially,
he's the white boy, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love that that's even a thing in this draft.
I agree. Especially just because, like, I like their receivers. I like Kyle Pitts. I like their backfield. They bring in Kirk Cousins, who can actually throw the ball to a wide receiver. So, like, I do like their offense. And so I think you throw in, a solid cornerback to shore things up there. Byron Murphy to the Bears. I think you just got to keep upgrading that defense, especially like you're getting Caleb Williams. You brought in why am I forgetting his name from the Chargers? The wide receiver.
Oh, Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen. Brought him in. You got DJ Moore. The other thing for the Bears for me is, like, definitely get some O-line, definitely a running back. But I don't see any of the running backs as a first-round talent in this draft at all. So they can obviously wait for that. And then I put Brock Bowers to the Jets because you get Aaron Rodgers. While he does definitely need O-line, I agree with that by far. You give him another weapon. And Bowers, especially, like, who was the last good tight end on the Jets? Like,
honest answer, Kellen Winslow.
Okay. Okay.
Honest answer is Kellen Winslow. They haven't had a guy in a minute. This next five is going to be fun. I think even when the draft actually happens.
I agree. So I put McCarthy with you can see in mine, I actually don't have Michael Penix up here. I think it was more so like an accident more than it was like, I don't think he deserves to be up there. Cause I mean, he is a very good talent, but I put McCarthy in Minnesota cause I just feel like Minnesota, after Culpepper, they just love their white quarterbacks. They love their run-of-the-mill white guys that can just stay in the pocket, throw the ball where it needs to be. And you don't need anybody that's over the top, like, does anything crazy when you have the receiving core that they have. You just need somebody that can get them the ball.
Agreed.
So
that's fair.
That's why I went with McCarthy. But
I was going to say obviously, I said they're going to take Penix. Mm-hmm. And I actually... JJ McCarthy goes to Denver immediately after because this is the one I even drew a little like double arrow between these two picks because in my head I'm like either one of these could happen, but if I'm Denver, right, if Minnesota goes the other way and takes Penix, you literally, it doesn't matter who you had on your board, you take JJ McCarthy right then and there because it takes you back to the style that Peyton had. Like, way more than anything you've had since.
Right.
All the other weird attempts you made at guys from smaller schools like Brock Osweiler, Drew Lock, like, you get away from that. Here's your QB1 from the national champions, J.J. McCarthy, who is a pocket rifleman. That's what he is. Like, you take that, you mold it, you get him weapons after you give him an O-line. Tell him it might be a couple years before you guys are actually good. Like, you need to, you know what I mean, impress that upon him so he's not coming in thinking, I'm going to transform this franchise. It's good to have that confidence. You want a guy that has that kind of in his mindset, like in his heart, that's like, we can win everything. And he will, because he's a natty champion.
Right.
But you can build on that more than I think anything. And Denver is in such a rebuilding period at this point because their cap is fucked for like 4 years. So, like, it's a nightmare. But I like that you have Bo Nix. I actually love the respect for Bo Nix because that dude has earned it.
Yeah, I put Bo Nix up there just because I feel like he's a Sean Payton kind of guy. I don't know why.
I could feel that.
I just feel like he is. And it's funny because, like, on Bovada right now, obviously this is odds for first quarterback selected, which is Caleb Williams. But after him, they have Jaden Daniels and Drake May. Obviously, we've both had them as well. Then there's JJ McCarthy. Then they actually have Bo Nix at plus 7,500, and then Michael Penix at plus 10,000.
Okay.
I'm actually surprised about that because I feel like most of the stuff I've heard is Penix over Bo Nix.
The hesitation with Penix is the school he played at.
That makes sense.
I like, as good as he was, and I love watching him play, like, genuinely. He played at Washington, so there's going to be, for all these GMs and everything, because they overthink this shit. It shouldn't be about this, but it is, which is why occasionally you get Denver taking a risk on a guy like Drew Lock, who didn't go to somewhere huge. Right. Sometimes it doesn't work out. So you're going to drop a guy who goes to Washington a little lower, because you're going to go, why weren't you at Ohio State, LSU, Alabama, or, you know what I mean? Like, any of these, like, more polarizing. Like, in think of years prior, right? What are we used to? A QB from Oklahoma.
Yep.
Like, so that's Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield. You got Ohio State, LSU, and you get the perfect one for that is Joe Burrow because he was at both. Like, yep. But that's your thought, is you have these schools that just produce, and then the other guys that don't come from there carry a lot more risk. I mean, and you have to go back a while before you find these guys that were, like, really good from somewhere else.
Yeah. Like,
really good. Like, I mean, we'll pull Russell Wilson, because for a long time he was incredible. Yeah. He had a rough time in Denver, and I'm gonna blame Denver more than anything for that, because they have not run a good franchise since Peyton retired. Agreed. They just haven't. But he went to Wisconsin. And before that, I think it was like NC State. So he was at smaller, in good conferences, but smaller schools, in terms of the grand scheme of college football. And then we could even throw the bigger curveball, go further back, and let's say Drew Brees. He went to Purdue.
Right.
Like, have we heard of any Purdue quarterback since? I don't think so.
That's a good question. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
So that's where I sit here. I'm like, okay, you're a little hesitant because, like, Purdue is in the Big Ten, but they're not the school. And Washington was in the Pac-12 before it just disintegrated into wherever the fuck all these teams are going. Mm-hmm. But they were never the school. They're always competitive, and they're always a nuisance to, like, every one of these higher profile teams. But I think the reason I'm high on him is because he was good every year, and he clearly got better every single year. And that was with the same coaching staff. So in my head, I'm going, take him in Minnesota, keep a staff around him, don't do this shit where you're new coordinator every year, so that you can build that rapport and make the system about him, because he has talent in all these areas that you want in today's NFL.
Right.
And he doesn't have the ego at all. Like, he is so humble. It's the same as Jaden Daniels. It's why Jaden Daniels is going to go top 5. Is because he's at a mega school. He's at LSU.
Exactly.
But he is so just, like, down to earth and willing to learn and listen and grow and everything. And if you're an NFL team trying to draft, it's like, we want that guy. and Penix should be in that conversation. Um, and Minnesota is I think a good fit for him because they give him weapons right away.
Yep.
So it's going to be an easy transition because he gets to just develop in the league with guys who are going to make up for his mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Like if he has a bad throw, even if it's awful, he's got Hawkinson, Jefferson, and Addison to make a great play. And then every time he'll get a little better on that. So
right.
I think it's a good fit.
So I should have, even though it's 3 quarterbacks in a row, I should have put Penix with the Raiders, especially if he's still there.
Yeah.
For the Raiders. I did put Quinion Mitchell just because like their defensive backs definitely upgrade.
I went corner as well.
Yeah.
But I went for let's see. I went Terry and Arnold, who you have at 15, but I just basically swapped those two, I think. Actually, no, I didn't. Well, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so 14 for the Saints.
Yep.
We are exactly the same. We're exactly
right.
the same. Perfect.
They could definitely use offensive line help.
Oh, yeah.
And then, I put Terry and Arnold with the Colts because I think that the Colts defense could definitely use a bit of an upgrade. We still don't know Anthony Richardson. That's still a question mark to see how he does. So,
but see, this is I'll do the exact flip side of that on this pick.
Mm-hmm.
I still had Rome Odunze available here, and I sent him to the Colts because they just re-signed Michael Pittman, who I think is their clear number one, and you give him help, and then this is where you really get to see, if Anthony Richardson can stay healthy, what a full season with weapons looks like.
That makes sense.
And it gives them a young receiver to build that 1-2 connection with.
Right. Yep, then I went Dallas Turner for Seattle because Seattle, I mean, they have a bunch of different places they could upgrade. The only place they don't need to upgrade is wide receiver.
Yeah.
That's literally it. So
I went edge for them.
Okay.
As well, but I said Turner to the Falcons earlier, so for this position I put Jared Verse out of Florida State.
Okay.
I see him on your board too, so he's clearly a first round guy. It's just a matter of team preference and when teams pick. Like if Seattle comes up and he's available and Dallas Turner isn't, it's one of those, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like I think your draft will be right. If he's still available, they'll go for him because you take an Alabama guy, you're getting a good dude.
Oh, for sure. Especially defense.
So, exactly.
17 with the Jaguars. I went Nate Wiggins just because they could use help with their defense too. And then it kind of went this is where I kind of just was pretty much going straight for team needs instead of just get the best guy up until I got to 23.
Okay.
Because with the Vikings' second first-round pick, I was like, at that point, get best available, see if you could do something with it. But, I mean, they could also use an edge. It's not like they have the best defensive line. But, Wiggins at the Jaguars, then Fontenot for the Bengals because you can always use some offensive line help.
Here was why. So here's why I was going to do that, but we just signed Trent Brown this morning.
True.
At offensive tackle, so I was like, okay, their big board's shifting. So for the Bengals, you took Byron Murphy at 9 for the Bears. On mine, he was still available because D-line is less revered as edge.
Right.
But the Bengals could use interior, in my opinion, more than exterior. They have Troy Hendrickson, and they got some guys. So Byron Murphy goes to Cincinnati here. And then for the Rams, I have them taking edge. They take one of the best names in the whole draft, Chop Robinson out of Penn State.
Great name.
Perfect for an edge rusher. He's going. I can't wait for the T-shirts.
Oh yeah, I went interior just because of Aaron Donald retiring. And
that makes perfect sense.
Obviously, you need to fill that because, I mean, you're not going to fill it with somebody of equal talent because Aaron Donald's one of the best to ever do it. But just throwing something in there. And then, we talked about Fashanu before. I threw him with the Steelers because they could definitely use offensive line help.
It's all about preference because literally I did the same thing for the Steelers. They have an offensive tackle, Amarius Mims out of Georgia.
Okay.
I'm thinking like, if Fashanu is gone,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna just go, okay, let like whoever they actually scouted, because we don't know who they scouted, but we know they need tackles. Like even with like Kenny Pickett was there, he got hit so fucking much, dude.
Exactly.
And you're not gonna want either of the guys you just acquired to go through the same thing. And Russell Wilson has been sacked enough in his life. That dude, like he is gonna retire the most hit quarterback in NFL history. It's gonna happen. Like he's on pace. So
and that was my thing with the Steelers is everyone was talking about Kenny this, Kenny that. I'm like, there's a lot more issues than just Kenny. Yeah, I'm not saying Kenny was the greatest quarterback ever, but like there's once you see another quarterback step in, you're gonna realize, there's some other issues that need to be addressed. So that's why I was get a tackle.
I sat back and said, give Kenny Pickett the 2010 Steelers O-line and receiving core, and you come back to me.
Exactly.
And tell me what you think when you see him throwing to Santonio Holmes and like behind that O-line with just absolute reliability. Like, come on. It's not even close.
Agreed.
All right,
going
who you
off
got
that
next?
logic, going off that logic, I put Latham for the Dolphins because we were just talking about Tua. This guy does not need another head injury. Get him help.
Same thing. I took Tyler Guyton. Out of Oklahoma, off the same position. Like you gotta you protect the outside of that O line because the dude has been blind high, like just hit enough, man. Just If it's hits he can see coming, he has a special helmet now. He can brace himself. He'll be okay. If it's from the edges, that's where it gets scary for QBs. So exactly.
Eagles. I just went center just as a backup kind of thing because I know, like you were saying before, that Jason Kelsey pretty much handpicked Juergens, but I kind of did it as just in case they needed, either. I mean, you always need a backup center no matter what, but just in case, like you can have somebody have some flexibility with your center in Juergens and maybe put Juergens somewhere else if they need to or whatever it may be. That was kind of my thought process with that.
When we looked at their signing list earlier, Matt Hennessy has played center in the past too. So that was, you know what I mean? So that's like, but it's the same concept. You know what I mean? Your thought process is literally perfect because that's exactly what they were thinking. Like he could play guard because he's a little bigger. Mm-hmm. But he's played center before, so if Juergens gets hurt or whatever happens, like we have somebody who's conditioned to snapping the ball to a quarterback in the NFL. Right. I took a corner because I think that's for sure a logical choice based on what I've seen, because James Bradbury is literal crispy, extra burnt toast. But you said Nate Wiggins was going to go to Jacksonville at 17. I have him going to the Birds because the Eagles and Clemson do have quite the connection in the secondary with obviously Brian Dawkins. And then we tried again with Kayvon Wallace a couple of years ago, but he sucked absolute dog water. So he's gone. But yeah, I think CB. I think it's going to be. Here's what's going to happen with the Eagles. I'll just do like 2 seconds on this. We're either staying at 22 to take a corner because there's enough options that will be available for us, or we're going to move and just do something completely out of pocket. And I don't even know what it would be yet, but it's Howie Roseman. Right. And on draft days, he does some shit. So, like, if there's a player that gets rumored in trades or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, you can't put anything past them. But if all stays the same, I think it's going to be a corner.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. The Vikings I was explaining before, I kind of just went best available with Jared Verse there since he was still on my board. And then I went tackle right after that. Mims to Dallas. They could always use some more. And Barton to Green Bay. Get Jordan Love a little bit more protection. Especially because like their receiving core and everything is on the way up, especially with what they saw from some of the guys like Jaden Reed. So get him some more protection.
So for Minnesota, they obviously lost Danielle Hunter in free agency, and he is like perennial Pro Bowler, incredible defensive linemen. Like they're gonna feel that instantly. So I have them taking Braylon Trice out of Washington. He's just edge rusher. Figured like get the outside set, and if you can find some inside, great. Dallas, I have them taking the best name in the entire draft, Kool-Aid McKinstry at CB. Because Stephon Gilmore, they're obviously going to lose, so they're going to need corner. And in this division, like receiver-wise, obviously facing the Eagles with who we have, and then the Giants quietly have been building a decent receiving core, like one little piece at a time. Like they're going to get good eventually once they have someone throwing to them. So I think prepare for that now. Let's see. So that would be. Let's go Green Bay next. Yeah, 26. Yeah. What is? Yeah, 25. Green Bay next. Yep, I have. Let me hold on. I want to see if you have it on yours, because my handwriting sucks. No, it's Ennis Dackestraw Jr., the cornerback out of Mizzou.
Okay.
Just like looking at the player draft rankings versus needs,
right.
And even thinking about Green Bay, you traded Rasul Douglas midseason.
Mm-hmm.
So that instantly was that hurt them in the long run. I know why they did it, but it hurt them in the long run. Because I think when they made that trade, they didn't understand actually that they were going to make the playoffs. I think they were fighting for it, but they were kind of doing that, like lean back, let's see, let's load some stuff up and whatever happens, happens. Mm-hmm. But at CB, they're very, very light right now and absolutely could use that. And I think he's solid. I think this is Mizzou's best draft year I've ever seen in my life, potentially. I actually have 3 guys from them in the first round, which I don't know if that's ever happened. Actually, I'm pretty sure it hasn't. So now we're at Tampa.
Yep. So I put Latu for Tampa because their defense was just aging. They could really use a lot of things, but they got Cansey from Pitt for their interior.
Yep.
And after he came back healthy, he provided a lot of value in the interior. So I figured get them an edge to go along with him for a young defensive line and really bolster that for them, for their pass rush, run stopping, all of it together.
Agreed. So for Tampa, I took Darius Robinson, edge rusher from Mizzou.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I've actually seen some tape of his. That dude he's actually terrifying. It's just he's not at one of the high profile schools, so you don't. This is what's tough for I'll call us the average people because we're not getting fed all the information directly to us. We have to find it.
Right.
I watched some Mizzou games. This guy's burst around the outside is shocking. He's a beast, and I'm I want to see him go in the first because I think he deserves it, and I think Tampa fits him perfectly because same way you said, Devin White left, they're gonna need some of that aggressive presence, and he fits that, and so does Latu. If right. Either one of them swap or however we want to, you know what I mean? They need somebody on defense that can get to the quarterback very, very successfully. And if they get that, obviously I'm so happy for Baker Mayfield that he found a home here.
Right.
Because I think that dude was vilified so much. And it's he got drafted to Cleveland and took them to a playoffs.
Yeah.
All their quarterback play before him could not get them there. He came in, they had a winning record, made the playoffs. Leave him the fuck alone. Leave him alone.
I know. So give me your next 2 because I fucked up these 2. I should have had them flip-flopped. So I wanted Wilson to go to Arizona and Kool-Aid to go to Buffalo.
So here's interesting. I have 2 receivers going. I think Arizona goes double. I think they go double receiver in my mock draft on purpose because this is one of the deepest receiver classes I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, it's insane.
Just jumps off the page. Insanity. So I have Arizona taking Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU. And I have Buffalo taking another great name, Ladd McConkey from Georgia.
Oh yeah, that is.
Because I'm just like, okay, so you have a Georgia receiver, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend for half a second that the reason they were winning all those championships was Stetson Bennett.
Right.
Not even for a second. Good player, fit their system perfectly. The amount of talent Georgia has been able to recruit and put around that man. Come on. Like,
It's ridiculous.
especially like, look at where you have Brock Bowers on your draft. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of talent is just, he is a freak. He will make anyone better. And if you give him to the Jets, Aaron Rodgers doesn't need to be better.
Exactly.
But he'll be better now. And that's scary. Like, especially since, like, if I look at Aaron Rodgers' career, tight end wise, he's had what, like 2 good ones? And I mean like good, not like great, good.
Is his best tight end like Mercedes Lewis?
Think so. And at the time, Mercedes Lewis was actually very solid. And he had oh god, the dude who made the insane sideline toe tap catch against Dallas in the playoffs. That guy. Can't remember his name. War number 89. But that guy had been like an insanely good veteran for a long time.
Not Donald Driver, right? Is that too
Nah,
late?
he was a receiver anyway.
Oh, right, yeah.
He was a big receiver, to be fair. He could have played tight end if he wanted.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about, because I know
He's a thick boy.
You're talking about. But,
hold on. Toe tap, catch, Packers, Dallas. I need his name or I'm going to lose my fucking mind. Jared Cook.
Ah, yes. Jared Cook has always been the solid tight end, too.
Yeah, and he was in like the twilight of his career with Green Bay, but he was still good enough, given that Aaron Rodgers was such a good quarterback, that it was like, okay, this is what happens when you give him a very good tight end or a guy who's just reliable. Yeah. And if you give him a guy like Brock Bowers, holy shit.
Yeah, I had Wilson going to. I wanted Peyton Wilson to be in the Arizona spot just because, I mean, Arizona hasn't really had like anything linebacker wise in a long time. Their linebackers also,
and they lost Jordan Hicks to free agency this year too.
Exactly.
So they're like, yeah, that's a good pick.
And the injury bug bit them too in the linebacker core last year. And then McKinstry to Buffalo. I mean, they lost a couple of their safeties and corners. They did add 1 or 2, but like some of the those guys I don't think they're going to be able to replace exactly what the old guys left. Yeah. So I figured he would be solid there too. Then it got to Detroit. I honestly put Zach Frazier there because, like, according to PFF, he was kind of like the best available.
Okay. And that makes,
especially like not a receiver, because I was like, I don't think they
don't need one.
Yeah. So, and like, they don't need a quarterback. They don't need a tight end. They don't need a running back. Like, a lot of that offense, they didn't really need. I could have gone defense with them, but I just didn't. I mean, they don't need like fucking what's his name is a fucking beast on the defensive line.
Oh, well, Aiden Hutchinson's a monster.
Yeah, like, and
he's a monster.
They just drafted a linebacker last year, I think it was. So he's still getting.
They went Iowa. They went Iowa twice.
Yeah,
they went tight end and Iowa linebacker in the same draft. Yeah.
So I went center with them in this one, and then for the Ravens, I put like at that point I was like Brian Thomas Jr. They need a big receiver. They got the fast guy. Now they need a big one.
So here's where my thought went with the Ravens. I'll do Detroit first. Mm-hmm. So Detroit, where I looked in order of needs, it was cornerback, edge, because they want someone to pair with Hutchinson.
Right.
And then it went D lineman for interior. And I was like, you know what? Okay. They had, on PFF rating, overall, they had the best O-line in football. Mm-hmm. Last year. It was like the first year in a couple of years the Eagles hadn't been number 1. And then they just signed Zietler from you guys. Right. So I'm like, holy shit, they're actually like, that's scary. So I went D-line. Because the interior, I'm like, if the interior is stronger and more of a threat, then Hutchinson just gets better on the outside too.
True.
So I gave him Johnny Newton out of Illinois, who was just one of the, like, was just one of the highest. I think you actually have him to the Rams.
Yep.
And I think that's his nickname, and I think his name on wherever I was looking was Johnny, which I want to look into that ASAP because it's obviously the same person. But the fact that you have him at 19, it's like the dude's good.
Oh yeah.
And if the Lions, if somehow he's available for Detroit, I don't see how they say no, because I think that is one of those things. If they could shore up the middle, perfect, and then for the Ravens. I went speed again, but only because he's actually still pretty tall. Mm-hmm. Xavier Worthy out of Texas, who ran that blazing 40.
That is a guy that a lot of Ravens fans do want. So,
well, but I was surprised because you see a 40 speed that fast, and you're expecting like 5'9", 5'10".
Right.
He's on some sites they have him marked as 6 foot. And even like NFL says 5'11", it's still a little better. But like you won't, especially in an offense as dynamic as the Ravens is, like they like fast. Like Lamar is fast. Derrick Henry is the first power you guys have had in a while. Like your other backs haven't been this big in, I mean, literally maybe since the franchise moved back. Like so Jamal Lewis, where it's this kind of physical strength. Like I like that, but then I hear exactly what you're saying too, where like let me actually, I have a page open with wide receiver list. I could fully see Keon Coleman here,
true,
from Florida State, because I think he's a bigger dude. He's 6'3", so if that's where they're going and they want a size guy, then this makes perfect sense,
right?
But I think they'll have the option, which is nice. Like there's a lot of low second round, like early second round or late first round graded wide receivers for them to choose from. And it is such a position of need, especially considering like their salary cap problems. This is a very cheap way to get young, good talent in there for Lamar Jackson. And I think it's 100% the way they're going to go.
And I think they just need to replicate what they had with Torrey Smith being the burner and Anquan Bolden being the big possession receiver.
Yeah. And if Keon Coleman has good hands, like if that's his thing, then it makes perfect sense. Because Zay Flowers is such a good blend of everything. Like he's not so small that you're afraid of him just getting broken in half. Like he just, Zay impressed me a lot for a rookie to be that like developed right off the bat.
100% agree.
So stoked with that because that is the one thing with the Ravens for so long. You're looking at like since the Super Bowl in 2012. Since that Super Bowl in 2012, you're like, why can't we just get outside players in here? What is the problem? Like you weren't scared to draft Torrey Smith.
Right.
Like you did all the homework you needed to do to know he's going to be good. Like do that again.
Yep.
Like, you don't have to always go and trade for a guy. Like, granted, Anquan Bolden, great choice and guy to go for because it fit exactly the way you needed it. But I think at this point, you know what you have already, especially given the addition of Derrick Henry. Get a dude who's going to win contested catches and help Lamar in that sense, where if a play breaks down, he could throw it to him and rely on him to win that, instead of always trying to find like a deep threat, because that's just not going to win you playoff games, as was seen. So,
yep, completely agree. And then the last two picks I have here to round out the first round, I have Tyler Guyton going to San Fran, shoring up more of their offensive line, and then Mitchell from Texas. God help us all if he goes to Kansas City to play with Patrick Mahomes.
I don't think they're going to be the team to take him. I think they'll still improve anyway because they always find a way. But this is where I had Troy Fautanu, who you had going to the Bengals, just because I think, like, whereas the Bengals didn't need a tackle necessarily at this point because they have a Brown on each side, ironically. San Francisco goes for him as an interior, more of a guard, because the site where I was looking, they had him marked as interior, which surprised me a little bit, but he's just a big dude, and I think he's played everything. So it's going to be whatever the team drafts him needs.
That makes sense.
Is where he's going to play. And then to round it out, my third Mizzou pick of the first round, Kansas City will take Chris Abrams-Drain because they love people with hyphens in their names. They fucking do. They have Valdez-Scantling. They have Edwards-Helaire. Like, they love it. And he fits the mold of the non-high profile receiver that they take every year.
Yep.
Like, they tried to take Sky Moore a little earlier. They missed badly because he's hot ass, and they know it, which is why he didn't see the field at all. They tried to trade for Kadarius Toney. He didn't see the field. But this is the thing with the Chiefs I respect is when a guy is not good enough, they don't fucking play him. It doesn't matter what his salary is. They go, who's going to win us a game? That's who's playing. Same with Jerick McKinnon. Jerick McKinnon's career was essentially over once Minnesota let him go, and he has revived that under Andy Reid.
True.
Stoked for him. But I think they'll take a more under the radar school guy that just kind of fits with their theme of how receivers are. Like they had a high profile guy. They had Tyreek Hill. And they decided we don't actually need him. We'll let him move on. And what have they done since? They've made 2 straight Super Bowls. And they've won them both. So they know something we don't.
Seriously. I mean, it seems like it's that way every year. So, but that was our first round mock drafts of the upcoming draft and the first episode of Sideline Specialists. This was a long one. I don't know if we're always going to do this long for everybody watching, just because sometimes we will not have this much time. But definitely thank you everybody for tuning in to the first one. Paranormal, thank you for subscribing and tuning in. We really appreciate that and the love. Like we said before, we will figure out how often this is going to be, what the schedule looks like, how everything's going to be set up. We just kind of decided to jump right into it and figure the rest out later. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that was a great first episode.
Hell yeah.
Appreciate it, everyone. We will be back at some point. We'll post something and you'll see a live stream pop up. So for now, it'll probably be on this channel. So if you subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so it will let you know when we do end up going live. We can also post on the community tab of YouTube and let everyone know as well. So we appreciate it, and we'll catch you guys next episode. Peace.